continuation of our hearing related to the assisted living facility at Bolton Office Park. So we have Mark Dibb here, he's the engineer, and he's gonna present some revised plans.
Should I set up over here?
I can move. Over there might be better.
What's best for the, is the camera there? I think?
There's a camera right there that can get it.
But then it's behind, it either should be behind Erica.
That's what I was saying, behind
Okay.
Erica.
Okay, that sounds good.
That way we could also can see it.
I move.
Eric's making,
Sorry.
we really need to put in for new chairs around this table. This one, yeah,
Falls down,
Well,
you
from the-
sit in it?
they're starting to wobble this way, that's a problem.
Has anyone heard from John Carlin or?
Usually comes at 7:35.
Okay.
Oh, so we need him here?
Technically,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, we can, take your time.
Yeah, he'll be here. I don't think he's ever missed one.
Right. He'll come with his can of Cokes. No can of Coke. Where's the can of Coke?
Oh, pocket.
There it is.
There it is. Nice.
Hey, most of you guys, actually all you guys have kids, you know how exhausting they are. Caffeine and keep my
We need something.
Great, so we're all here? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, after the last meeting we had, we kind of regrouped, came up with a list of everything we felt was open comments that all the boards had, you know, everybody, things they were looking for, or just questions, you know, all those types of things. So I think, basically, at this point, I'm gonna run through those and how the plans changed. If you don't have a copy, you might have a couple extra here. And just follow up a little bit with what we discussed with Design Review Board after that, and just go from there. The first section is regarding the architecture. I have this elevation view along with another rendering that shows a different angle. I guess I'm not gonna flip around to every sheet, but on the floor plan, there was a door for the loading area that kind of cut through the and out. We just revised that where there's like a linen area, more of a storage area, so that you can come in and you can get into the main building, or you can go to the kitchen. You don't have to go through the kitchen for everything, so it's a minor floor change.
So that's,
Right here, there's
the truck is,
yeah. So
is this the new?
that's the new. So now you can come in through here, or you can go into the kitchen. So there's a better opportunity for getting just non-kitchen related items in the building versus.
So is that a porch, or that's just an extension, a bump out on?
That's just a bump out on the building.
And that's the back of the building? I mean, your main resident entrance is here?
No, this is the covered entry.
That's your main, okay.
With drop off. This is the main entry. This is a
Got it,
loading
got it.
entry.
Okay, thanks.
There is this entry along with emergency exit here, the back entry, because the emergency exits are with the stairs. You gotta directly go from the stairs out. You can't do this. So
If you want to come up and look.
I can actually, thank you very much. I
Okay.
can see pretty well.
the overall architectural style was just kind of cleaned up. It was kind of a mix of things. There was a palladium window. On the front, it had like an arch. It just didn't quite fit in. We've revised that. Added a small window. And that most of these are from Design Review.
Yep.
We've increased the fenestration across the entire thing. I think you'll see, I did bring an old one. But like all these windows are either bigger or longer. Everything's just kind of grander. The trim is thicker. Basically, that was an item that the design review board, we felt we handled well. The next one was the wider corner board, fascia board, rake boards.
So this is just more like historic.
Correct.
The size of the windows.
Yeah, and my architect did attend the design review board meeting, but he's not here tonight, so somebody, I'll try to point him out the best I can, but they were happy with everything. Identified, just the doors, the loading door, that was just a comment, it's identified. It's not a loading dock, it's just a door there. The roof over the entrance was just modified slightly, just some different roof lines and things like that. It was not a big change, but it was a request by the design review board. You can see there's just some features up there now.
So that was kind of the railing.
Yeah, we could, we've just had things we made. Confirm that the height of the drive-through will accept the emergency vehicles that are required. Provided elevations of all sides. It's just, that was a good point, just to go to the next one. Just show, I picked it, but the roof, there's an area in the middle of the building that's actually a flat roof, where all the HVAC equipment and stuff. You can kind of, there's this line that, it's there.
So it's below.
Yep.
The
It's
picture of the roof.
completely hidden. All the HVAC units are contained in that. We have other renderings that show that, but we've addressed their concerns about that. Showed the views of all four sides, so you get the front, the back. Left side, it's kind of, when you're looking straight on with the angled building, it can get a little confusing, but this is the covered, this is actually the rear, and this is the covered area
In the
back
back-
here. This is
back
a
porch.
pretty nice feature of the back porch, the front covering. Might as well touch on, they did have 3 additional comments while we're on the architecture. We got a design review board meeting minutes today received. The without balustrade, I believe that's this. We're gonna change the roof line on this feature here. They didn't like the flat.
That is the what? Oh, that piece. Okay.
There's just
the bump out for the.
yeah.
for
So
the
the
kitchen.
bump out's gonna stay, but and again, some of this is above but my architect understands what they want, and it's more comfortable. I think it's just gonna be something similar to the rest, but a different pitches and stuff like that. And it's just that feature for some reason to the design review board.
I think they were looking for symmetry between both sides of the building. Like if you look on the other side, it doesn't have
It doesn't
that.
have a bump out either.
So, yeah, so I think the idea was that they were gonna make it more symmetrical and,
The bump out will still be there, and I think it'll just have a lower,
yeah.
a pitch to it. Well, we're gonna satisfy their request at this point, To me, it's.
I like it, it's fine.
I did just get a stamped landscape plan. The generator and life safety generator and transformer. They were, on the site plans, they were proposed to be right here. However, this is an actual resident, so there'd be, somebody's bedroom window basically is here. We've relocated that, and and that'll be screened by a stockade fence. There is windows on this, but it's the kitchen, it's not a area. So we do, I am getting that this is one of the 3 changes for the design review board, I'm getting that added to both the rendering and the site, it's already on the site plans. But we feel that's a good location for that. It'll be screened with a nice white vinyl stockade fence most likely. And, it fit well there, and again, those windows aren't as crucial as, I mean, you'll still be able to see out the windows, but you'll be looking into this kind of.
Do you have resident rooms and windows on the rear of this building?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, the
So
whole,
yeah, you can't really hide it. You gotta put it in
Yeah,
front of the
there's-
kitchen or.
everywhere, you
Somebody's
know,
room.
these are all rooms
Yep,
looking at.
yep.
With the exception of, right now, we do have 2 common areas right on the ends.
I'd just say, I mean, it's kind of a tight spot there. You can't kind of put it more in there and, you know, put the fence around it and then plant around that.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be that close.
Then it's in front of people's windows, right?
yeah, as soon as you get past this driveway here, these are
Yeah, you
windows,
can't
so
win.
if it's out, you know, we
Yeah.
feel it's a good location. I mean, if for some reason, they wanna run the entire facility for days on this generator, and it gets bigger and it doesn't fit, you know, we'd have to either come back or just, you know, discuss that, you know.
Why wouldn't you put it on the back of the building? Is there a reason for that?
I mean, we have the utilities proposed to come in this vicinity right now.
Oh, just-
Other than that, there's
That's where
no,
all the input is, yeah.
yeah, I mean,
But it's not, that's why I asked, are there rooms on the back and windows on the back? It's not even like. you
really,
can
the
tuck
only
it in the
other
back and hide
potentially,
from somebody's
you know,
window.
these 2
Yeah.
corners.
Yeah.
You lose anyway, so.
Yeah.
In front of the kitchen.
It's just
as well.
trying to put it in a place where you have room to,
Correct.
we don't have a lot of room here, and, you know, people driving through, it's like right at your front door, but, so that was one of the things I was thinking about, it was that and also the gas tank, are those gonna be buried, or?
I did show this
The propane
location,
tanks.
that was gonna get the same screening as proposed, it would be, right now, it'd be above ground, but, you know, a final design might put it underground, but right now we're proposing above ground.
And how many gallons is that?
I don't have that exact, that would be continued, we don't have full mechanical design yet, so it
Mhm.
wouldn't, you know, I think if anything changed where we needed a bigger tank that it just either physically doesn't just work there, you know, any change like that, once we do get the mechanical design, if we have to come back, you know, we'd be, you know, obviously if you approve these plans and there's a change big enough to reflect coming back, you know, we'd be coming back. They requested, we had stone veneer around the columns, and we removed them, they requested that to be back in, just this, it's similar to a stone veneer on that. They did comment on, we'll discuss that later, the sidewalk at the lacrosse field, we'll get into that in a little bit. And we still, especially the front main pylon sign for the entire project, we still would like for that to be, a final approval, that to be conditioned somehow to either design review board or something, and without the exact tenant, we just, we do understand, I think that the sign out there today, it's a backlit sign, and it doesn't conform to current zoning, so if we do change it, you know, we might have to change, you know, we understand we need approval for the sign. We just can't, you know, without the tenant, and potentially even including the manor on the side, you know, open to that as well. But that is one item we'd like to continue to address as we get a user. So those are the architectural features we worked on. The landscape plan, we added, I can turn to it if we need, but we added some shade trees at, I believe it's in this as well. If you just. That's volumetric. That's the landscape plan. The design review board was very happy with this plan as well. We added the shade trees on the south side of the bench areas to give the benches some shading. We added some pine-type evergreen trees and trees that would provide berries and things for winter. I describe it as winter interest trees. I think these are some shrubs with berry. These. Look up what those
So the comment about the natives on this side has been taken into
Yeah,
consideration.
that's considered. They were the design review board was very happy with the plan.
Good.
The stamped plan that I just received today, I noticed one kind of omission throughout the entire site plans, but they're on the plan set. Since this is the emergency access, we simply didn't have the walkway connecting the access out, so that's been revised. Stairway, there's an emergency door right here,
Mhm.
and a walkway's been added, and the plans have been revised to include that. That was just omitted in there. But the landscape plan, we do have a stamped by a landscape architect plan now.
You know if the plantings that were in the location of the walkways, were they relocated somewhere else or were they just taken out?
It's literally like a single shrub.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
look at it closely enough, but I don't. It there's no trees affected, so
Yeah.
it would literally be a single bush or something like that. We did provide a photometric plan with full cutoff lighting. For the purpose of that plan is to show the parking areas specifically. That's been provided.
So, and you're just saying full cutoff fixtures? What about fixtures on the building? Are there any sconces, downlights?
They were not modeled, the photometric plan focused on the parking. Any other lighting associated, obviously the covered driveway would have some down lighting. They were not modeled in. They're not specifically designed yet at this point, I guess. If we need, there's no floodlights or anything like that proposed. We can stay that dark sky compliant type scenario. We're not gonna,
Full cutoff fixtures for any sconces?
anything
down
over all
lights.
the exit doors and things like that, won't be full cutoff as well. As far as signage, there's been directional signs shown on the site plan that all the different driveways will be directional signs. They've been identified by means of notes, the physical, and these are just the directional signs. They've all been, there'd be different signs identified to identify the different, office park, the assisted living, the Bolton Manor. But an actual sign package that lists every sign, the exact wording is not prepared. We'd like to leave that till we get that tenant and reflect going to the design review board or whatever board controls final decision on those signs.
Erica, do you have an answer on that?
Signs in general are Board of Selectmen.
Right.
And they may want design review board weigh in on,
Mhm.
how they look.
further discussion on, we can do that. The title page has a parking space allocation summary. Basically, I've identified some, these spaces identified as AL are kind of, they won't be, literally like an assisted living parking only sign will not be out in the field. But have tried to identify, you know, office parking versus assisted living parking, just to summarize, to make sure that the office would have, we don't want to lose too many spaces in the office, because we just don't want to meet the demands of that, assuming they would ever fill up.
So that's just in terms of these signs you're talking about? for parking?
Correct, yeah. And
But
to-
there won't be,
Yeah, I mean, I think there'd be some visitor parking signs, some different individual things, but I don't think, you know, assisted living parking only, all of this will be towed, you know, things like that. The intention is to still share the parking throughout the project. So we've identified that we feel is adequate parking for both the office building and the assisted living building.
and I was happy to see that you put a sidewalk in along the length.
Yeah, that has been put in, just all the utilities have been identified.
And then I saw the note that you studied the fire pond and has.
Yes, we physically,
How do you do that? Who did that?
2 guys in a canoe.
Were you one of them?
No, I was not.
So they just
One
drop
of the
away?
principles of conduct was, no, because I was not available. Imagine that.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, literally dropped the tape, took a bunch of spots. You can see the front one is actually almost 10 feet deep in areas. And then I calculated the storage of it and
Mhm.
the gallon equivalent, and I feel there's no need for maintenance of it. It's easily got 1 million gallons in both. Each one has easily has 1 million gallons in those ponds available for.
So this is another one, which I guess I wasn't aware that was another, there's a second fire pond next to the large parking, behind the large parking lot.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know if it's ever.
Is there a pipe that comes?
Yeah, I think that's a question the fire department has, is a dry hydrant in that area. We'd be open to installing that. If it's not shown on the plans, but we don't have any reason not to do that as part of fire protection.
So the dry hydrant is the connection to the pipe in the pond?
Yes.
And that's not considered a wetland or anything, right, that pond? I'm just curious.
They were both built at the same time. It was the wetland flood. It is considered a wetland. The Conservation Commission considered it a wetland. They even considered, based on the age and when these were installed, but they also understand it can be used for that purpose, for firefighting purpose. If we needed to go and dredge or remove siltation, they were gonna make us either refile or at least notify them of any work in there, but we're not based on what we found, we don't feel we need to do that type of maintenance.
So the extent of the landscape plan kind of ends there, but there's also this parking lot, and I think, according to your plan, I think about 8 trees are coming out to put in a new parking area, and I just wondered what's gonna go back in around, or, we have that regulation tree for every 10 parking spots. So I'm just wondering what you can do around that area to kind of make up for the trees you're cutting down and, provide a little shade around that.
We could provide, I think that was think there's 30 spaces there, something like that.
I think I counted and there are 40 there, this is like 35.
You know, we could, if we need to show them on a plan, we could provide 4 additional trees around that. I mean, these, unfortunately, the ones in here, they are large adult trees, so they will come down, but the remaining are also large. But it looks like a couple, at least a couple along here as well, if, you know,
Where's
we'd be-
that lot?
This is the lot that's between the office building and Bolton Manor.
It's next to this,
It's the new,
Oh, the new one, off to
New
the
one.
side.
yeah.
Okay.
We'd be open to providing 4 additional shade trees in that area. If we need to, you know, two in the island and maybe 2 along the back. I think we far exceed the number of trees. I think we had this discussion before, they are on the perimeter, but we've proposed a lot of trees.
right, I mean, we're not, you know, we're not having you put them in between
Right.
each car, which is really nice of us. But it would be good, you know, you're removing 8 mature trees, it would be good to put back some trees, you know, just around the parking area.
Is this 4 adequate, or for the 40 spaces? or
Well,
should
just
we
if
put
you're, you know, your landscape architect could just look at that.
Let's just. The last couple things were we added the meets and bounds associated with the easement for the Bolton Manor. As well as I did get an estimate for material costs, just for our own use as well as to present to the board, but the material costs of approximately about $10,000 for the fill, the sub base, and the pavement for those parking spots. And that's just the material cost, so then there's the place and compaction and installing and things like that would be above that. I think what we'd like to propose at that is to include those as part of the project, building that parking lot out when we're mobilized to do the rest of the project. But in lieu of any further donation for the sidewalk out on that. You know, it's already our property, you know, we'll do those improvements, you know, I don't know if the board agrees, but that's what we're proposing, and we're open to discussion on that as well, but to
So it's not running the sidewalk across, what you're proposing is not running the sidewalk across the land which is not your own. Rather, running it across the land that is your own and developing a park.
Yeah,
So
we
sidewalk
would
would end
still,
at your line.
we still have all the
Yep.
sidewalk going in, all of this sidewalk. It's this little piece.
Yep.
But we are proposing to build out that, those parking spaces.
My opinion, I know that parking's very important to you guys, the mobility was very important to me. I think that's probably a good middle ground. I'd be supportive of that. I think that's a good gesture, and I think that's a decent win, a good compromise.
Are you still estimating you can get 15 parking lots there? Because that was, I think, on the initial.
Yeah, you could go to the next page.
Which I would, okay.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, there is a light pole, we wouldn't wanna touch that, but I think it's 15. 15, yeah. I mean, we feel comfortable that we can.
And I realize it's unrelated to this proposal and this applicant, but it's the same conversation about the sidewalk. What did Clinton donate or agree to donate?
5,000.
Okay.
Great, any other things you want to tell us about?
Those were the any changes we've made.
So who, Mark, who does your snow removal now on sidewalks?
I don't know the specific contractor name, but we have a property management group that handles the snow removal and,
So would you be maintaining all the sidewalks on the property in the
Yeah.
wintertime?
And I imagine that those parking spaces would be the, whose responsibility would that be?
Oh,
I gotta
It's still
put it
got-
on the manor on that
Well,
one, just because
yeah,
you have to access it through the driveway, you
We
know.
talked about Manor taking on indemnity, and I know the
Yeah.
conversation went both ways. Where are we now? Do we know?
I don't
For the
know.
indemnification, the easement, they're willing to accept.
They
it.
are willing to, okay.
Yeah.
all right, Okay.
So,
and they're willing to plow them, or they pay a local person to?
It's just an extra swipe of a plow.
Yeah, no. I mean-
yeah, I mean, I haven't
Not
looked
even-
at it,
Just go a little bit further
Yeah,
out, yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
And
I
our
don't think
plows,
that's a make or break.
our plows wouldn't even be able to get to them without going on their land, so
Yeah, yeah.
it doesn't.
Just I think that, I don't know if all of, I hate to be a pain, but, you know, if all this is gonna be in writing, that at some point that kind of be clarified too, so we don't end up, you know, with everybody throwing up their hands at the first snowfall and saying, who's doing this, you know?
But, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, Jonathan will go shovel, he doesn't mind.
Well, your son's almost old enough.
So that's a conversation for us to have with the Manor?
I think it's part of that, maybe that whole indemnification
Yep.
process.
And we started to have that kind of conversation when I met them out there. We had the conversation about snow removal, and it didn't seem like it was gonna be a big deal.
Okay.
yeah,
You know,
they pay somebody, it's
Yeah,
not,
right.
the town doesn't.
Yeah, no,
The
town's
town
get
doesn't
involved
do
with
that.
this.
Public Council Claus probably wouldn't even realize it was different. They would just.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
He lives across the street.
Yeah, and he's a nice guy too.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy.
Good. Anything else, Mark?
I think
So, the existing, I noticed some of the existing light poles are staying within the kind of construction area.
Yeah, like, you know, for instance, this one and that one's existing.
So they're staying exactly in their current location?
Yep.
Okay.
Joe.
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question about lighting, because I don't know anything about lighting. And you use the terminology cut-off light, parking lights. Does that mean it turns off at a certain point in time? I'm just, you know, concerned because there's going to be a lot more lighting for people that are residents of the manor, and just want to understand that.
It means, it's the fixture itself it's a box, so it shines down. It's not like a floodlight that shines out and potentially
Okay.
like in somebody's window or something like
Mhm.
that. We haven't proposed, the parking lot lights, they would stay on.
You would stay on, and will some consideration in that process as you build this out or do the lighting be given to the fact, you know, to the fact that there are residents there that are, you know, that are
Correct, yeah. and the-
nighttime
and the
residents
reason-
there besides yours, there's, you know, one's next door and,
The reason for the photometric plan that's now been created, you'll see the foot candles as you get to the property line are basically zero.
Mm.
So that it's
Okay.
designed to not be spraying a bunch of light out.
Okay.
But like
Good.
currently, this huge parking lot in the back, I'm just assuming those lights go off at some point. Whereas I understand you have staff coming in on shifts and maybe you'd want to keep lights on in this parking lot all night, but does this huge one have to stay lit? So that would be kind of something.
Existing conditions, I can't give 100%. On my way out of here, drive by, but.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Or like 10 o'clock, you know, in town, like town hall, certain lights shut off, I think, around 10 or 10:30.
I think we made a compromise with Clinton Savings Bank, right, to have them go into their nighttime mode at 9, they're
Right,
at 10.
so and like the library, which, you know, we're always talking about, but
Nuclear winter.
they do shut most of their lights down at 10:35, that they leave a few on
You have
in the
to-
front.
you can't-
So if you could just get a little more sophisticated with the lighting, proposal, because I think if that huge empty parking lot, the lights stayed on all night, I think that would be too much. I understand that this is like visitor and emergency and staff changes, but, so if we could just get a little bit more, understand what the existing conditions are and, you know, what your schedule is. So the Clinton Savings Bank has, what was it, 3? Like weekends, maybe it was just 2.
I think it was just
2
2.
zones.
Yeah, it was like an overnight zone and an evening zone, and that switch, we compromised and had them flip that switch at 9 PM. And there was still illumination overnight.
Yep.
Security nature of the property, which is not dissimilar from this. I mean, you don't want it pitch black. To have a reduction at that time, I think it's fair. I mean, it's the requirement we discussed with Clinton. It's an adjacent
Yeah.
property. It's the same concern. It's the same kind of atmosphere too. I mean, you want the safety, so you want some light, but you've got residents nearby. We're only X% built out of the town. We've got that concern. We should just stay somewhat consistent.
Just being an existing condition, I personally don't know the effort to modify a whole lighting system either, but I'll look into that and see.
No, it's like, what's going on
Right.
here as an existing condition, just so we can understand what you're proposing
Okay.
here and here.
Any new lighting can definitely be, you know, have different zones and stuff. I'm not sure how easy to, if we did want to modify and try to reduce some of that existing lighting,
Yeah,
some
and
significant.
we're trying to leave this parking lot alone, but we just want to understand what the schedule is.
And I think in that back parking lot, if I understand Jonathan's concern correctly, and to voice my own, it's not necessarily removing the equipment. I think it's just looking at what that schedule is. And if that schedule currently is a 24-hour, do we need it to be a 24-hour? Can it switch to a dimmer or an off, or only a few of those lights in that back parking lot are on post 9 PM, something like that?
But he's saying
We'd probably do it no cost.
some of the wiring,
Yeah,
it might just be an on or off, and it would require rewiring all those lamps, so it'd probably be a lot of extra work if it's not already there.
Yeah. Isn't it? Or
What?
1990 or something?
Yeah, but if it's got an off switch, it could go off at 9. I think it's as simple as what I'm
Who
saying.
puts on switches in?
What's that?
Who puts on switches in? Newfangled stuff.
Okay.
No, if you could just look into that for us and give us more information. Because right now, you look back there, this area is dark. And so we know it's gonna lighten up a lot, but does it have to be like a Walmart? Or can it feel like, you know,
Target.
can it feel like?
Last time I went to Walmart in Hudson, all the lights in the parking lot were off. I couldn't even find where I was going this fall.
What time is that?
6.
Hudson.
Yeah, I try not to, but don't let the place have what I needed.
So Erica, have you looked at the drainage and grading plans?
So what we had,
As our
Horsley
engineer.
went and do a review of it, and they signed off a
Okay.
while ago, so
Good.
we're good to go on that.
So, yeah, so great, great response to our last meeting. I don't know where we are, so it sounds like you'd like us to approve at this meeting? Do we feel like we're ready for that? or-
I think the board's ready. What I would like to see happen is that at this point, I don't think we need additional information. I know you guys wanted some additional information on the lighting, but I think that can be worked out during construction.
And that's about it for me, is
yeah.
the lighting.
Okay, so we close the hearing and then,
And then what I would recommend, because to be quite honest, I just
Yeah.
haven't had a chance to write the special permit. And I think it would be helpful if at our next meeting, if we could sit down and go through that language together before
So
I
work
hand it
on
off to town clerk.
Yeah.
I was thinking that maybe you could hold off on your decision until the next meeting, because you have 90 days to make that decision at the close of the hearing. I've already talked to Mark about this, and he said they didn't have a definite timeline, so he would be fine with that. And
oh,
then,
that sounds good. It'd be good to work on the conditions together.
yeah, that's what I was thinking, yeah.
What condition?
Go ahead.
Well, just like the things, like the signage, the things that aren't resolved.
Right, yeah, so you just put in,
Yeah, talking about pre-construction meetings, maybe a final meeting at the end of construction.
Construction schedule, you know,
Yeah,
no Sundays, no holidays.
Yeah, it's just a
Okay.
whole bunch
Just
of
generic.
details.
yeah.
yeah, I was just wondering which ones.
So before you close the hearing, the only other question I have on this, it's a general question, but of course it pertains to the parking. Is all of this put into writing when it's part of the special permit, so that, I think we all know that in prior times that sometimes, and not to the planning board or anybody else, but things sometimes get talked, I
Yeah,
certainly
no,
am
go
not.
ahead, yeah.
No, but I'm not, because I think I don't think it had anything to do with you, but things get talked about and everybody's in agreement, and then you get down the road and there's no document that, finalizes everything, and everybody's on the same page, and that's just a concern I
Documentation
have.
is our friend.
Documentation is your friend, so that all of this, about everything, but including the parking, will be documented.
Yep.
Great.
It'll all be in the special permit.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
And
That will-
we
that's
invite
the
you to
idea.
come to
Okay,
the
yeah,
next
so
meeting
the
to
next
make
meeting will
sure.
be the special, I'll be here. Miss these
Just
swings.
to close the
Yeah,
loop.
yeah, to close the loop, okay. And that would be the meeting, would be next, 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Make a motion to close this hearing.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, so,
We do, just a little more information, we do have a couple interested parties,
Mhm.
if things change as a result of them, we'll be back. So we understand that, and we're getting approved for these plans, but, we'll probably come back if it is exactly the same, just to introduce the tenant, and nothing formal yet, but this party's interested, so.
That's
That's
awesome.
good, yeah, that's good news.
Are they talking about a split, or are you guys talking about a split between Alzheimer's care section and, or that's?
I'm not sure yet.
We're not there yet,
It's
okay.
outside of my,
are they one of the,
I do not believe so.
okay.
Well, good luck, congrats.
Okay, thank you. This is where you keep
Yes.
this copy.
Thank you.
Mark, how high is that stockade fence? When I think of a stockade fence, I think of those ones with like little teeth on top. But you're talking more of like a,
I'm proposing 6 feet high. I mean, it could be one with it has like the flat, somehow almost like a cap on it. It'll be a white vinyl fence. It'll look nice, I guess, I'm picturing stockade as solid,
okay,
it's a specific.
solid board.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 feet seems high, but we'll talk about that.
I think you could do the 6 feet with the top of the lattice,
Mhm.
and the Home Depot stocks of those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Make it seem shorter for you.
Thank your associates for testing the ponds.
They literally broke the ice as they went.
Did they?
What'd you say,
That
it was
should have been
it's
in
the
the paper.
principals in a canoe?
It was, you met Jeff O'Neill, Don O'Neill is the other principal, and he was one of the guys. I was busy that day, I don't know what I was doing.
Right? Not frozen pond? Nah. he doesn't.
Thanks, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Next item, we are going to review planning board warrant articles for the 2015 town meeting. So the first one is an amendment to the mixed-use village overlay district.
Give us email?
Do we have Doug's email?
Yes, we do.
So we reached, town council says we need to amend it, and I spoke to MAPC Cynthia, what's Cynthia's last name?
Cynthia Wall?
Cynthia Wall, who worked with us on the village overlay and extensively, and she said, you know, she defers to town council. You know, she would have thought that the overlay was enough, but she's always learning, and if town council says so, then she would go with that. And then, you know, Doug says, so we reached out to former planning board member, chairman Doug Story, and he says, I feel number of allowed building does not necessarily equal number of allowed housing units. So, it's,
Did we ever get the exact words from the attorney? What they said or no?
It was in a conversation, it wasn't in writing, and it was at the very end, sort of this whole process last year, right before town meeting, and I think, Jonathan, the conversation with Doug was that we felt rather than bringing that amendment to the floor, we would just wait and do the change this
yeah,
year.
Doug did bring it up at the
Yeah.
time, but it just seemed very complicated at the moment.
So, yeah, so I have a bunch of thoughts about this.
What's the Reader's Digest version of what this,
But wait, so he says our current bylaw allows one housing unit per lot and no duplexes or multi-unit
Yeah.
housing. The village overlay may supersede this and allow other things. I think you need to be very clear what you want to allow and not allow. What you don't, to not allow something you don't want because of a lack of clarity. You know, so, you know, he assumes we want to allow higher density than normal. You know, we talked about 8 units an acre, which meant like the Regency, but with units upstairs. You know, Regency is very dense. I think that's 4 units an acre, and we said double that, so thinking of top-of-shop housing
Yeah.
or multi-unit. So it's just, you know, it's just, I guess, being more specific, just so that if a project comes, we don't get bogged down in this question, but let's hear what you
and does it hedge against the risk of an applicant coming to us and saying, we want 16 units, and us now having clarity where before we just said, density can go up, lot coverage can now go up?
So I think there's a couple of things here. First of all, the town attorney is saying that potentially the 1 unit per 80,000 square feet would carry over to the overlay, which I agree with Cynthia. I don't know how that would possibly be, because the overlays everything, and it has a completely new set of rules, which is
Okay.
multi-units allowed, you know, according, you know, up to the planning board and on the special permit. So adding this increased the building density for residential to a maximum of 8 housing units per acre. So the whole intent of the overlay was to say you have 10% usage, you can have multiple units. You know, we can't envision everything that a developer would want to use for the overlay. So come to us with a plan. The DRB, the planning board, the selectmen, the Board of Health, variance, all these boards
Still
will
have to sign off.
still have to sign off on this.
And your concern is that a viable proposal can come in front of us with 10 units.
Exactly.
Everything makes sense, but automatically it's
So
permitted.
they're saying units. So, you know, they're not saying foundations. So what if you have, I don't know, 2 sets of 5 townhouse style units. Like some of the drawings that we saw from the mixed-use overlay had some townhouse-style buildings, and then some like shops, type things. So I think we're really hurting the overlay by already putting restrictions without ever seeing a plan in front of us. When the whole point of the overlay was to allow developers the flexibility within 10% to come to us with a design that would go in front of the design review board, that would go into the planning
I don't
board.
disagree with you.
Huh?
I don't disagree with you.
So
I think the problem was that it's not, the overlay doesn't completely replace the underlying zoning.
It
It's on
does.
top of it.
No, it replaces it.
I don't
think that's
I
correct.
don't think that's correct either.
So,
But I don't think,
And this is the root
Doug
of it.
wants this to go through, so he doesn't want it to get hung up
Mm.
and have to refer to like
Yeah.
one building a lot.
well, he was saying two things. So, okay, that's one thing. So on G here, instead of saying increase the building density to a maximum of 8 housing units, say the density, described in the residential district no longer applies in the overlay, and, the overlay if you wanna say, this 1 unit per 80,000 square feet doesn't carry over to the overlay, fine. But to start putting restrictions on the overlay, which hasn't been used, and which is actually gonna have a hard time anyway, because with private sewer and private water, not much in the terms of density could be really built. Look at the 40B that's going in. I mean, they had to drastically reduce that because of sewage. So, I mean, we're kind of randomly coming up with a number. And then if we do this, the thing I worry about is it goes to the floor, and then somebody stands up and says, well, 8 housing units sounds like a lot, I amend this to 4. And then like the whole overlay is completely shot. I see no reason at all to put this in when the whole point of it was that the planning board and all the other boards would have the power. If somebody came with a 100-unit garden style, like hotelish looking building, a big block of, you'd be like, get out of here. This is, not what we want. So all the precautions are put in. Somebody can't come with something that we're not gonna agree with. Look what we're doing with Condyne and, the bank. We're telling them what type of plants to put in Fountainhead, in front of the well. We're telling them and windows and this and that. Something as big as number of units. We'll be able to work with them. So my only point is, it was just to allow the flexibility to developers to come to us with already a pretty restrictive 10% land usage and come up with something interesting.
So I think Doug's point was that if you don't specifically allow for more density than is in the underlying zoning, which is 1 unit per lot,
Yeah.
you won't be able to get more than 1 unit per lot, regardless of how big the acreage is.
The
So you've got to
overlay,
do something.
I read through it. It says, you're allowed multiple units, up to 10%.
But that's a 10% is a footprint. It's not.
Exactly.
It
No, but-
says that the footprint of the buildings cannot be more than 10% of the.
No, it says the combined square footage of all the buildings.
Of all the buildings, so exactly, it doesn't say anything about the number of units.
within said building.
Yes.
Yeah, how close those buildings are to each other.
So, I mean,
Well-
I think Doug is on the same page
Yeah.
as you. You've got to do something to.
Okay, well, I don't like this wording. If you wanna say, the residential 1 unit per 80,000
Increase the
square
building
feet.
density for residential use beyond that which is currently allowed.
Yeah,
in
if
residential
you wanna
zoning.
say that this doesn't carry through,
But I think what you would want to say is increase it to there is no upper limit, essentially. It's up to
Exactly.
your discretion. But I
Exactly.
think you've got to put some language.
Well,
in.
I
I
agree.
think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you wanna say that 1 unit per 80,000 doesn't carry forward through to the overlay, fine. If you wanna clarify that.
But then I think you'll run into the problem that, that gets around, then I think it becomes much more controversial at town meeting, like there's no upper limit potentially. I know it's subject
Well,
to,
the upper limit is 10%. And 2 floors,
well, that's an upper limit on the square
Right.
footage. You could put 200 micro apartments in there. It's still, you could have a lot of small apartments. I don't necessarily think it's very likely, but
Well, it's not
opens up
likely
that
because of the sewage system. Unless his,
Well, sewage
Unless
goes
it's-
on number of bedrooms.
huh?
Yes, I could just see.
Sewage
in terms
goes on
of
number of
the
bedrooms. I guess it doesn't matter how big the bedrooms are.
My only point is, that wasn't the intent of the overlay. And I agree that maybe you have to say that multiple housing units per lot should be required, you know, something to do that, but I don't think you need a maximum. And any maximum number we come up with is gonna be a guess. And that number, I guarantee you, I guarantee you, we go to the floor, somebody's gonna stand up and say like, oh, 8 units, that's too much, we should make this 4 or 2, and then, you know, what the hell?
Well,
What's the point of
it
the
did
overlay?
pass, it did pass.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did show those models, so I think people understand it pretty much.
We also have the argument of, well, we don't currently have a maximum limit. So right now, we could get a plan for 50 units per acre, and that's allowed here. So, don't you
Yeah.
want to limit that? You know?
Yeah, I just think models that MAPC did for us, I don't think they were able to get in, we'd have to go back and look at them, but I don't think they were able to get in more than 6 or 8 per acre with all of the, like the wetlands and the, you know, all the other restrictions.
Because of this, the septic required, you're saying?
Not, it wasn't the septic, like, even if they had a septic treatment system, you know, I think those were all based on, there was just like the
Wetlands
wetlands for all of
percentage, lot
those, and
coverage.
then heritage,
All the
and,
other rigmarole they have to go through.
So are you saying, I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
are you saying there's natural constraints kind of already there
Yeah.
between all of the oversight, the sewer, the wetlands, where putting an upper limit on it may be counterproductive?
But,
Well, it might not even, you might not even get to that
but
limit.
it is true that, you know, the group that drafted it, you know, they didn't wanna say the project would be 50% housing, 50% commercial. They wanted it, they said, you know, relatively equal or some terminology like
Yeah.
that. So there was, you know, this desire, but, you know, Doug's not trying to keep the number down, he's just trying to come up with something that's very specific, that won't bog this down if it does happen, that's clear. I don't know, I guess I would propose, like, that you work with Eric and Don and town council to try, you know, see if there's a different way, different language.
So I agree with not wanting somebody to say, well, you know, this residential now is the overlay, residential was 1 per 80,000, you know, that should carry, you know, if that needs to be specifically set out saying that, that no longer carries through, I agree with that, that should be there, you know.
You don't want a project to get stopped because somebody brings that objection
Well,
legally.
I
There's
just- yeah.
plenty of lawyers in town.
Right, you know, this 1 per 80,000 no
Yeah.
longer applies to the overlay, the overlay is 10% multiple, you know, units, or, you know, multiple units allowed. I agree that we need that.
Mhm.
But to be setting an upper limit, and maybe the upper, I mean, I don't know, so, you know, I don't know if this number,
Would you feel good with 10 units?
that's the thing, I don't know, I mean, you know, what is,
Maybe you could look at the models too and just see, because I don't think they were getting
Right.
above like 6 or 8.
are we talking about?
The models that MAPC did.
So, you know, like in my example of a 5-unit townhouse, you know, how they have like a row, townhouse rows or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, a couple of those could be within 1 acre, and then you're at 10.
Yeah, but it's like, it's the whole picture. It's like, so you have the lot and then 50% of that has to be open space, right? Isn't that one of the?
50% is impervious, 10% is square footage.
Right, so within all of those restrictions, you know, we'd have to pull out the models that MAPC.
So there are all those restrictions, and you have to go in front of the board for a special permit. It's not like, you know, some developer could come in and, you know, take this list of rules and go, I know how we can get there.
None of us are worried about that. We're
Yeah.
worried somebody's gonna say you can't do it because it has to be 1 housing unit per acre.
Well, then I'm saying we should put words in to say it could be more than 1 housing unit per acre or whatever,
Right,
you
so
know?
I
But I
think,
don't think we need to put a maximum number in, because
But
all the other you know,
be aware though that that type of language about, you know, we'll handle these things with a special permit, the planning board will
It's
decide
already in there with the
on a-
overlay.
on a case-by-case basis.
Or that's
Those-
what passed.
Those
It
types
passed-
of arguments have run into problems in town meeting before because people worry that, maybe in the
It
future.
passed
we're-
unanimously, 100%.
Yes, but you've heard this before, I know you have. As James was saying, they run into problems because someone will stand up and say, well, we have a group of very wise men and women in charge of the stuff in town right now. It doesn't always have to be that way. Someone with really deep pockets can come in and buy everyone on those boards and put in whatever they want. You've heard that verbatim. I know you have.
I have, and it probably came up,
It happens.
it came up in that meeting, but it passed 100%, so people aren't worried
I
about
don't want to
that.
hear that again, though.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't want to. Frankly, I get offended when I hear it.
The overlay passed 100%. I don't see why I need to put a maximum number in, because then it's just like
I know,
adding,
but-
it's just like adding a tax. Once you add a tax, then people can keep on increasing it.
It's just
In this case,
throwing ammunition out for people to try
there's
and
no
shoot it
ammunition.
down.
We don't have to bring this up at all, except for clarifying that more than one housing unit.
The town council is telling us we need to, and Doug, who's had a lot of experience, is flagging it too, so you gotta
Well, I emailed
take
Doug.
that seriously.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I just say you work with Erica and Don and town council and come up with something, come back
I
with
will.
something, but if you can pull out the models that MAPC did and just find, because they did a whole grid, like, for the 3 properties, and the density, it was tough to get above a certain amount. just
Exactly,
because
agree.
of, the
Wetlands and sewage and everything. I mean, just,
I'm not gonna be Pollyanna, but I think everybody can, I think we're all saying kind of the same thing. I think it's the specific nature of the number 8 that's getting people caught up a little bit. I
Yeah.
think you can clarify the permit and open it up to make it a number of units above and beyond, whether you're saying it's superseding residential zoning or it's in addition to residential zoning. There's a way to say we can have more coverage
Well,
without
'cause
picking a number.
that, I mean, that is the intent of the overlay and the understanding by
To
every.
add flexibility. I don't-
That's the understanding of everybody in the town meeting last year, that you can have a dense section of
So
housing.
long as it's only in these parts of
And that's what
town
it
and
wants.
it goes through
Yeah.
all of these.
And,
costs,
I mean,
they're very-
to get into more general terms, I think this town needs
I don't.
housing like that. We can't just be all mansions. We need, some smaller units that can get like a diversity of people in here, whether it's younger people right out of college, or it's, people who don't plan on kids and don't want kids and just want a smaller, 2-bedroom condo type thing. I don't see why we can't have that in this town,
I think we need some sort of section G here, but I think we can probably work on the language.
I agree.
It'll help too.
And I'll
So you two
lead
will
that.
take the lead on that
Yeah.
and work with Erica and Don and town
Yeah,
council.
I think we need something there, but I think we can be worded differently.
And also something that takes into account the politics of the situation, the politics of town meeting.
Yes.
the politics of town meeting is if we come with this, someone's gonna stand up and say, eight's too much, let's go 4.
Well,
I say 2.
That's the
I say
potential
1,
with everything.
then we have no overlay.
Right, anything could happen, but.
All right.
Good. Love your passion. No, it's,
No,
it's tricky, it's just.
Well, I mean, I've been
it's
talking about this
good.
overlay for 3 years
Yeah,
now.
no, it's.
If anybody,
If I were a lawyer, I'd have something to say, but I was,
the unfortunate thing
rely
is,
on them.
the unfortunate thing, because of all the built-in restrictions, sewage and, it's probably never gonna get used. People have a hard time using it.
But that nice, the 40B, that's gonna sound nice, that's gonna offer like a new type
Yeah.
of housing.
No, it's good. Although there's still like 450,000 if you saw the article. I don't know how, but.
Where? By me?
There's 40 feet, that's 400.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the units will be average 450,000, which is,
well, it's like up at Sunset Ridge.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Over at Regency, it's.
40B is affordable unit, right?
well, so like 20%, so they'll be like 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom type things, and like 20% of them will be like a third of the cost or something subsidized.
Right, so Sunset Ridge, there are, those that are affordable, I believe, are 152. And then the rest are like 5 to 6 100,000.
So it's gonna be
Yeah,
similar
that's
to that.
nice. That's great. And are they filled?
Oh, yeah, it's been full for, it's,
No, that one, the affordable units.
there's one for sale right now. I think if you can qualify, I think you have to come within a very strict income limit.
Tight frame,
Super tight.
not too pricey,
Yeah.
but still affordable by that earning X percent of the median. I should know the exact calculation.
You have to come under 60,000 a year or something like that.
And yet you still have to qualify for a mortgage for what it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's this narrow range, and if you don't hit it, you can't make it.
But they're still really nice. I mean,
So I think
That's a super nice
the 40B going in is what, 3 sets of 6? Is that what it was?
Is that what it is?
Something like that. Three neighborhoods of 6 units with like common parking and,
I think it's bigger,
Well,
because I
in
think they're
Banner,
like
it's
35,
5, 6 unit.
oh, 5, 6.
Yeah. So it's 30 in total.
30.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's a good size. I think, so they had to reduce it by 10 units?
I think 12.
12
You
units.
reduced it by 12. The next article is to update the zoning map with the village overlay district. This is the figure that MACC put together for ATM last year.
Mhm.
I did work with Gary today on trying to do this in GIS. However, unfortunately, the zoning map was done by Ducharme and Dillis, so I don't have any of the actual data for the zoning map. So more than likely what I'll do is I'll reach out to Ducharme and Dillis to see if they can add this overlay to our zoning map, which is right there.
So what I don't understand is, wasn't that already done? Wasn't all the parcels already specified last year?
It is, but now it needs to be updated on the zoning map.
So the parcels are dictated in the overlay, but it's not part of the map.
It was a recommendation by town council,
So
it
it's
was a
just-
recommendation by the
so it's just
AG's
paperwork.
office.
That's an easy
It's an
pass.
easy, just,
Alright.
it's, yeah, it
It's
just
just
needs to be
paperwork,
done.
really.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and planning board still has budget, so more than likely, hopefully, Ducharme and Dillis can take care of that for us before town meeting, so.
Great. So that was that part, then we're moving to Article 3. Definitions, terms to 5 to add definitions of commercial boarding or training kennel, commercial breeder kennel, domestic charitable corporation kennel, personal kennel, or veterinary kennel. So,
We
So
added
this
this
is-
last year, we're just adding definitions now?
Correct, this was
Okay.
also a recommendation by, the AG's office.
Okay.
So we didn't really specify exactly, what kennel was just more than 3 dogs or something, I forget exactly.
There are definitions for kennels in the general bylaw, but, to be clear, the
Yeah.
AG's office is basically recommending that we include the definitions in the zoning bylaw as well.
so then each one gets a long definition. So we have commercial boarding and training, or training kennel is already in there, and then we're adding,
Just a general question, if we're having this nice expansive set of definitions in the zoning bylaw, is the general bylaw going to just refer to this? Or are they gonna update their definitions? I know this isn't a planning board concern, but it's a good
Question.
idea to have different definitions
Right.
of kennel in different places.
That's a good question, and, yeah, I agree with you, so, yeah, that would be a good
That's thought about
recommendation.
that, I guess.
Yeah,
You know, if we- Probably makes sense to just have them in one place, but if we have them in 2 places, they should be pretty much the same.
So remind me, what were the mechanisms with this again? If somebody fell under this, if they were changing their business or trying to open a new one, they'd have to come for special permit?
right.
Yep.
Apparently hasn't happened.
Well, no, we've
there's
already
so
market
many, we have a
saturated.
glut.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have full supply.
Yeah.
Any comments on that, other than John's? Anybody want to read these definitions?
No.
Who came up with them? AG's office?
These definitions are in our general bylaw.
Oh, they are?
I literally copied and pasted them, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And these weren't specific enough?
No, it's the fact that they weren't included in the zoning bylaw.
Oh, okay, so if
Yeah.
you
That's a pretty
You
super
copy and
easy
paste
sell
these.
then. Okay.
copy and pasted these from the general bylaw.
It's a
then
copy and
already in
paste.
there.
Yeah, right. I was
Section
like,
one
so
is
that
comment
was-
two. I get that.
Cool, done. Needed.
Gotcha.
Oh, I thought your comment was why have duplicate?
Oh, no.
That's what I thought you meant.
No,
Because a lot of
I didn't
times
know
I
where
will
you got
see.
these. I don't remember seeing something that extensive in the rest of the bylaws. So
Uh-huh.
I thought it was like a fairly in the general bylaw, and then we get this nice
No,
big.
it's the same exact
Okay,
definition.
well then,
Yeah.
disregard it. If we copy and pasting from one place to the
I
other,
think it's
then
still a good question, I may just ask it anyway. Uh,
So we'll move on to Article 4. It's an amendment to the code of the town. It's a zoning bylaw. Accessory uses.
Where is this coming from?
Yeah, that was my thought too. I mean, did like one resident have a complaint? Like, I mean, nobody's coming before the planning board with any complaints, so why are we even doing this?
Yeah, sure. So we did receive a complaint this year, about a home occupation. It was a landscaping business and, having a number of commercial vehicles parked in their driveway along with trailers. So Mike did have to go out and talk to the homeowner and, work with him on moving some of the equipment into the garage and sort of into the back of the property where it couldn't be seen from the affected neighbors' properties. So, and after that occurred, he came to me and said, you might want to, the planning board, you may want to think about updating the home occupation bylaw in the town of Lunenburg. We have a limitation on the number of commercial vehicles that can be in the driveway, and then this isn't as much of an issue, or it's not at the discretion of the building inspector, it's more defined within the bylaw. So that's kind of where this
So
stemmed from.
In that existing example, the landscaper, our bylaw says now, our town code says now that it's within the discretion of the building inspector to
Not-
make that judgment call?
Not specifically, but that tends to be what happens. I actually printed out the home occupation bylaw so I can read kind of how it's stated. It says, "The use is clearly incidental to and secondary to the use of the premise for residential purposes, and the external character of the premises is that of a one-family resident."
Yeah.
So, given that,
There's subjectivity as to whether it
Exactly.
is looking like a single.
so what
residence.
happens, in talking with Mike in the town of Lunenburg, oftentimes what happens is, okay, someone comes in and wants to start, let's just use the landscaping business as an example.
Yep.
They apply for the business certificate, everything's well and good, their business starts to grow, and all of a sudden, they no longer have just one commercial vehicle, they have 3 commercial vehicles,
Yep.
and they have trailers, and they have, excavators, and sometimes it tends to, multiply, and that's when there's issues, and people will complain, and then Mike has to go in and kind of, regulate the situation.
Is there any bylaw on the number of vehicles you can have?
As a
in your-
resident?
As a resident? Like, can I have 10 cars in my driveway?
I don't believe there's any.
I want to say there's something about
I
having
do, I
to
just
be
don't wanna
registered.
Correct.
I don't think you can have a dozen cars up on blocks without tax.
They have to be registered, as long as they're all
Yeah.
registered, yeah.
What did the landscaping company do? Did
Hi,
they
Atticus.
comply?
They did, they were, happy to comply, and he said, oh, yeah, he's like, I'll move some of this, some of the equipment into the garage, and so, yeah,
I think
they did comply.
it'd be nice to kind of keep it gentle like that, and
Sure.
not necessarily go around being like 1, 2, 3. All right, you suck. 1, 2, 3. You're okay.
So Doug's comments.
I'm also
Yeah.
confused about
It's very
the language here. It says a single commercial vehicle, and the vehicle is less than 33,000 pounds. So the way I read that is either you can't have any vehicles over 33,000 pounds for a home occupation, or you can have as many over 33,000 pounds as you want, but only one under.
So would this
So
be
that-
for,
I'm not sure about that language either.
I think that might be modified.
Just for my reference, what's a 33,000 pound vehicle?
I think it's gonna be bigger than a box truck. I don't think.
What's like a,
That much.
what's like a 250?
Well, I've got a 1,500, it's about 6,000 pounds, so maybe a 250 will be, 7,000 pounds,
I
8,000
think the
pounds.
idea is that you're not having like a tractor trailer parked in your driveway kind of thing. You don't want
we
big.
know the businesses in different neighborhoods,
I mean, I can understand Doug's point, so if you feel that this is anti-small business, I mean, that's not the intent
That's the
of
page.
it.
Yeah,
It's home occupation, it's not in the business, we're not talking business district or, you know, industrial district, we're talking about residential neighborhoods where
Yeah.
this is supposed to be very discreet, you know. When I think of home occupation, I think of lawyers, you know, accountants, sales reps that are working out of an office in their home. It's very discreet. You can't tell from the exterior of their home.
Yeah.
So,
It is definitely an issue. If you think about, I don't live directly next to anybody. But I think it would probably get lumped into people who live near farmers. You know, so they're people, you know, it just depends where you live and what your expectations are for like curb appeal.
I think the right to farm bylaws says something
Yeah.
about it supersedes everything
Yeah,
else.
so if you're farming, you get all sorts of protections.
Yeah, I was trying to envision where it would be a problem, because a lot of these businesses are, people kind of have long driveways and kind of are
right,
naturally
and
hidden.
then naturally
Well,
hidden,
yeah,
right,
some
which
ones
they
are.
would.
I don't think it's a problem.
David.
I don't support it.
I kind of agree with John in that.
David Casella was right around the
I was just
area.
gonna- you took
I
the words out of
never
my mouth.
figured out where it is, because I would think I'd see a van. I know they have to have multiple,
back
because
two
I've had
more
different
houses.
people come to my house.
Go north 2 houses, and there's a yellow house.
I can't
Another
tell.
electrician, and it's 2 nice, clean vans. You can see them from the street.
I mean, further down on Sugar Road, right by Powder Mill, there's like a commercial van that
Yeah.
parks over there every now and then, but there's just the one. That's the only thing I can even think of.
Yeah.
But like if you have a fleet of like 3 that are there every day, it is kind of becoming.
Yeah, I sort of agree, John, when John said keep it a gentleman's agreement, because I think it'd be so tough to put wording to it, but you know it when you see it, when it's an issue, that it probably is good the way it is.
If you just go in and say to them, hey,
You know,
you're kind of abusing the understanding
of home
doing-
occupation, yeah.
Yeah.
Get off my land.
And then if we get to the point of, you know, we have a couple of people are clearly abusing it,
Yeah.
and, you know, people are complaining, then maybe we address it
Right.
next year.
I agree, I think that would be a good way
Yeah.
to go.
Do we
But-
have
but
blight regulations?
If you can let us know when this is coming up.
Sure.
Here's another thing,
During the
point
year.
3,
Yeah, Miles and
existing, no more than 2 persons other than the residents of the dwelling and not more than a total of 4 can be employed at any one time on the premises.
So home occupation,
You know.
you're saying.
Yeah, so you're not allowed to really have a crew working for your home
Yeah.
occupation, at least on the premises, and if they're regularly
Yeah.
driving 5 vehicles there,
Yeah.
then they're
So maybe
clearly,
table this one.
yeah. I think if it becomes a problem, there's other pieces in the home occupation bylaw that can be dinged on.
Right, so so if it's a home occupation, so what, if you have a fleet of trucks, then that means people are coming to your house and picking up the trucks, and then it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem like it would really be happening.
I just think that,
No, I mean,
you know,
if you
if
think
we
of-
do keep it as a gentleman, that's a good thing. And if they don't want to play nice, then they can say, well, it looks like that you got about 6 or 7 people working here, and according to this, so.
Yeah,
you
then
know.
we a picture.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you want to play nice, or if you want to push it, then we have other things we can do,
Yeah.
you know.
Overregulation would kind of kill the mood of the town, I think. I think Bolton's a pretty like libertarian type place.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to know when it happens.
Sure.
And what, so we can go drive by and just
Okay.
kind of understand it better.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I don't live next to any of these, but there are people who do, and I can imagine it might be fine, or it might be,
David's
they're
saying it's
having
fine.
trouble selling their house.
All right,
So-
should we move on to the next article?
Take a look.
So Article
Home
4, we're
occupation,
gonna,
all they need
we're
to do
gonna
is get a
pull that
business
one
permit,
then?
right?
I think, yeah.
Yes,
Consider
for
it.
the guy,
At
Yeah,
least for
so-
now,
Okay.
people start parking crazy vehicles everywhere. We can do it.
Yeah. So,
So Chief Alfano,
yep, we have Article 4, and that was excessive noise from compression brakes or Jake brakes, so a prohibition on that. So we have 2 things. We have a note from Erica, from Don. So, can you explain? This is an
So-
administrative bylaw, so,
So administrative bylaws are brought forward at town meeting by Board of Selectmen and not planning board. So when Don was presenting all of the articles to Board of Selectmen in December, obviously Board of Selectmen recognized that and said, wait a second, if this is gonna be an administrative bylaw, that would be something that, we would cover. So they would feel more comfortable if the planning board decides to still support this bylaw for the board to go in front of Board of Selectmen and give a presentation on it. And one of the biggest concerns is how are we gonna enforce it? And that's why I contacted Vin, because I wanted to get his way in on, how they would enforce it.
What are the selectmen, what's their opinion? Do we know?
They think it's gonna be very hard to enforce.
And therefore don't do it?
Right now, well, I didn't speak to
Okay.
the Board of Selectmen directly. This is only, a quick conversation I had with Don, and then Don sent me the email.
Yep.
So it didn't sound like they, at this point, understood it or were maybe not in favor of it. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like they want us to present it to
Yeah.
them, and either they would say no, or we will sponsor it.
I know that, don't some towns, like I think Sudbury, maybe other towns, they have signs. You can
Yes.
put a couple of signs on 117 coming in and out,
Yep.
please don't do this.
Yeah.
Like, just.
I don't see
thank
the,
you.
my opinion, I don't see the harm in supporting this bylaw, enacting this bylaw, throwing up signs, if it is 1 in 100 cases where
Well, I
people
was,
can be caught doing this and get a ticket.
well, I was saying no by law, but just put up courtesy signs saying don't do it.
They've given the
I
chiefs.
think you have to do a
Yeah.
bylaw to get a sign to go up.
Yeah, I think you can put up, we have, I know it's adding some burden to the police department, but we don't ask them to ticket 100% of speeders.
Yeah,
or
we're not getting
Every
any.
violation,
Yeah.
they sit out there, and if somebody violates something, during that, shift, when they're doing that, then.
And if that's
Yeah.
1%, that's 1%, but there still is a
If-
speed limit
If we
sign.
could get signs up, where the brakes are used, and
Yep.
it's not, they're used whenever, a tractor trailer truck is coming to an intersection, it's not just where the speed limit changes. If they're going downhill, like the hill from, by Fox Run all the way down to Bolton Orchards, they're
That's
just
the
gonna put the
prime
Jake
example.
brake
Yep.
on,
Yep.
and it's like bloop, bloop, bloop. And that's like something you hear both sides of that road for like a half mile at least. So I'd just say, we're not expecting the police department to pull over and ticket every truck, just like get the sign up that says there's a $200 fine.
And if they're
and-
seeing it, boom, they get some revenue. If
Yeah.
not, there's no harm, no foul.
Maybe we'll improve the noise, by 25%. And
Not
that
gonna hurt
would,
it.
quality of life improves, by 25%. Aquatic, 110, 117, and that's for so many people.
Yep.
So you're saying that you couldn't put up a sign without a bylaw?
I think that's correct. I think the
You
way
could put up a
people
courtesy
used to
sign?
do it.
You could, but why not back it up with something?
Yeah, my only thought is just that, Vin's against it.
Yeah.
I mean,
And there's another road that's heavily traveled by large trucks in town that's not under the jurisdiction of the Bolton PD. It
Say that
goes
again?
through my
That's-
backyard, and
yeah.
frankly, I don't even hear
495.
anything anymore.
Yeah, you're right
You get
there.
used to it.
I was originally in favor of the Jake brake thing, but after reading Chief's email, it seems like we're not going to gain enough with pushing forward with this. I think we might kill some goodwill.
At the town meeting, I can also picture everyone, here's the police chief, oh, we don't like this, and then everyone gets up in turn. Well, if the police chief doesn't like this and doesn't want to enforce it, why are we bothering?
It's a tough sell town, it'll be a tough sell at Board of Selectmen
Right.
too with this from the chief.
yeah.
I think there are a lot of people that this issue, I think, has come up before, and I think a lot of people are excited about it. I think a lot of people have been saying no to this idea for many years. And, Harold has his, Harold says that the trucks,
They don't build
the
like that
brakes,
anymore, basically.
they don't make them that way, and in a few years, there won't be any more Jake brakes. I think that could be like in 10 years or 15 years, but, I understand the police don't want to do, and I just, we're not asking for them to focus on this.
I think we're not asking them for anything. I think we're giving them an opportunity for some revenue. And meanwhile, I'm being dead serious, I don't see why he's objecting to it. I think we're throwing some signs up. Some drivers will take caution and not use J brakes. It'll improve the quality of life, maybe a little bit more than a little bit. And maybe there's an opportunity for some ticket revenue there for the people who don't. I see no harm in it
Yeah,
whatsoever.
it sounds like it would have to go to the selectmen anyway, so I guess I don't see the harm of at least throwing it to the selectmen to have them
Yeah.
discuss it.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see if they're willing
So
to
what's his
sponsor.
concern? I mean, that seems to be, like, that would seem to be a clear way out of his issues. I mean, just don't, just don't do it, right?
don't enforce
Is he
it.
thinking he has to? Is there some sort of implied requirement for the police to, is he worried about people calling? I mean,
I don't get it.
Well, he says,
I don't get
I
it.
think there will be people calling saying, oh, we have this new bylaw.
Why aren't you
I
enforcing
heard
it?
it.
I took this guy's plate down.
Yeah.
But that's the point, though. They're saying you need to have, they need to be able to see it, and so that causes.
They need to witness it, but then
And
at
that's
the
his
same time,
response,
it's,
end of story.
Yeah.
I didn't witness it. I mean, it's the same as the applicant on Spec Hill Road. I need to see it. Well, okay, we'll wait until you see it. When you see it, we'll find it. He's got a job to do. And if we have a proposal that might help the quality of life a little bit, I don't see any harm.
because it's the same way as if, speeding, if a guy's speed by the cop, or if the guy puts on his Jake brake by the cops, I mean, it's the only way you'd really catch speeding, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say, the correlation of speed limits. I mean, you post a speed limit, some people observe it, some people don't, and they're caught if there is a police officer, monitoring. And if not, I mean, I think if you were to explain that, the way you've just done it to the Board of Selectmen, you might have, you might be more effective.
Mhm.
But I think the chief is saying, well, there's an exemption for emergencies for one thing, and he's saying the emergency is at the discretion of the truck driver. So if the truck driver says, I thought it was an emergency, I mean, that's my take on what he's saying, then
That's our
the
scroll
police
across the
officer.
road. Yeah, with the court time, the cost for the signs, I don't actually expect that they'd be bagging enough people to even cover that expense revenue. And
to be honest, I don't see them ticketing anyone. I think it'll be warnings here and there, and I'm not sure.
And to your point, if it reduces it a little bit, I'll take it. I don't see any harm in it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we could get, 25% reduction, it would make a lot of people happy. This has come up before, and there have been naysayers, and I just think,
What's the opposition?
I think
in the
it's-
past?
I don't know, and sometimes it's just, it's easier to say no, I think, but I think it's worth trying. There are a lot of people affected by this. If you think, Wattaquatic, the trucks that come down 110 to go to Clinton, and then Main Street,
Happen in the middle of the night ever?
it starts at 4:30 by my house. It's dairy trucks I've heard coming to Hood from Vermont. So the blubbing starts at 4:30, and then it goes on and on. So if you live near, within a few houses of the road, and that's a lot of people, it's a considerable noise.
The other towns that do it, how do they phrase their signs? Do they say, is it
No Jake brakes allowed.
no Jake, and it's
Yeah.
clearly a restriction,
That's it,
not,
just no
please
Jake-
do not
No,
use
no,
it.
no, it's a no triangular sign,
Okay.
no Jake brakes.
What sounds good?
I wish I could remember.
So
I will
I've
find
heard
out.
Hopkinton has a sign.
It's not
I mean, they-
cheap or irregular, I see them all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Chris
could come back,
Slade
I don't
called
see
me
harm.
about this bylaw too, and he said that Leominster has them. So I
Okay.
can always reach out to Leominster and see if they do not have a bylaw, they just have the signs. So
Okay.
it's,
Well, yeah, either way, it sounds like we couldn't sponsor it anyway, or at least the selectmen would have to, so I don't see the harm in at least putting it to the selectmen to discuss it,
so should I have planning board add it to the next board of selectmen meeting then? Which I think is the 22nd.
So would we need a quorum, or just,
Are they meeting, I think they're meeting next week.
would we need a quorum of us with them, or is it just a representative can discuss it with
I
them?
think it could be just a representative,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, baby.
So that'll go. good.
Okay.
Are there any other comments on that?
We were talking with Erica before about this. If, in fact, there is a transfer of ownership of 117, would that affect this? Because I know there was discussion at the selectmen meeting about not being able to prohibit trucks from using the roadway, but can you, would it?
It would still be in effect, because if there's a transfer of 117, we're not gonna have state police running the speed traps on Main Street. So, I mean, logically, we'd still follow the local
I mean,
PD.
that would be a question, but we still have other roads like Wattaquatic and 110, if that happens.
There'll still be Bolton Police on 117,
Yeah.
right? So, again, I don't see a difference between a speeding ticket and that.
But we'll
Well,
check
in terms of
on that.
enforcement, no.
Yeah, that's something, yeah.
Alright, so the last, item regarding the warrant articles, we need to schedule the public hearing. And I would like to schedule it for February 11th. Does anyone see any issues with that? All articles needed, all the hearings need to be completed by February 18th, so.
That's a regularly scheduled meeting, right?
It is, yes. So if everyone's okay with that, I will go ahead and get the legal notices to the paper tomorrow,
Well, it's February what?
February 11th, which should be our next meeting.
Well, two from now.
I'm sorry, yes,
Do
two
you
from now.
need how many members?
It's
Two,
possible.
yeah, I would assume 2/3, I have to look back at, I think it's 2/3 for zoning bylaw, yes.
Does it have to be the 11th? Could we do it 2 weeks after that? It probably should be the 11th.
Well, it has to be well, if we're gonna meet the deadline, it would have to be, the 11th.
Okay.
I'll be here, so I mean, we need at least 4 of us, right?
Right.
I can do that.
So our next item, so that sounds good. So we have the review of the annual planning board report, and then there's the chapter 61A property in North Road. Are you all here for?
This one, we came to listen, yes.
We should do that.
I just wanted to work with you. Are you coming to hear the discussion about North Road?
Yes.
Or-
No, they wanna hear what the annual report. Somebody somewhere.
Funny. So can we change the order?
Sure.
What about, Dave Pettit's here now too, if you wanted to sneak him in.
Do you want to just
yeah.
appoint David Pettit really quickly to the designer?
I don't know how long you feel like sticking
Yeah,
around
I
there.
Been a long day as is, but.
Okay, let's do that.
Just bang that one out.
So, if you wanna come forward, so you, you met with us
I met
before,
with you
right?
guys last
You-
year, yes.
We wanted you to join the planning board, but you went and joined.
Yeah, well, I
IDC?
And then I stepped in front of him.
Is that right?
Yeah.
yeah, well, I admire what you guys do. It's a commitment I don't think I'd be able to keep from planning with it.
Mhm. But the design review board schedule
I think
is
it's
more appealing.
Yeah.
And you're an engineer, is that right?
Yeah.
Civil engineer.
Mm.
Those good qualifications for the.
Have you gone to these last couple of meetings, the DRB with Condyne, or did you,
I haven't,
or
no.
just just like when you met them or whatever?
I actually have not been to a
Oh.
designer report.
Oh, so you're waiting to
Yeah,
get appointed.
yes.
So Ted Kirchner stepped down from design review board, so having met David from EDC, I thought he'd be a good fit for design review. So I asked him if he was interested, and he said he was. So
Cool.
that's kind of how it came about.
So, what do you think design reviews like?
What do I think? It sounds interesting, you know, to take a look at plans and review them from a sort of technical and aesthetic perspective.
Good.
And would be nice to have a guy on the board. And 3 other women.
So the other, the other members are more architects, like
Well, Michelle
structural,
Clark
right?
is the chair, and she's an architect.
Yeah,
Mary Delaney, I believe she was marketing for the Fruitlands
Yeah.
Museum, and then
But she's
Marshall
interested
McKee.
in history.
Yeah, and then Marshall McKee is a landscaper.
and so you're a civil engineer.
What
What,
type
yeah, what exactly is your job?
projects do you work on?
Land and,
Some land development, some environmental cleanup. Sort of a generalist when it comes to civil engineering, so I do a lot of different things. Meet in front of planning boards and zoning boards and things, part of applications, in front of conservation commissions as far as notices of intent. So I've seen that side of it too.
cool.
That's a nice compliment to the other roles.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? So we have a vote to appoint.
I make a motion to appoint Mr. David Pettit to the Design Review Board.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Welcome. It's a very important role. They've been very busy.
Sure.
2 big projects in the last year,
Sure.
so good.
Okay. Well, thanks for
Glad
making
to
room
have
for me.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to Norris Road. So the Board of Selectmen wants to know what we think about the property at 110 and 116 Norris Road. The total is 10.48 acres. I'm familiar with this property because you're gonna drive along the road and then it opens up on the west side, I think.
So,
Yeah, so sloping
There.
down.
Going
Sloping
north.
down, and there's like a cow barn and there are nice cows grazing.
Is it just fields? Is it the woods behind it? It's 10 acres.
I
I
think
have the
I
print
think
out
it's,
here.
It goes down, so it's probably,
Awesome.
So it's the 3 properties here.
oh, it's,
This is weird.
so where's
okay.
North Road? Right there.
So this is
That's
the
west.
house. So you're driving this way from,
That's your house.
So here's 117 here.
Yep, yep.
These 3.
so it's these 3?
Yeah, it's 110, 16. It's, this one doesn't have an address, 60, 63.
So
And that's the
you
barn,
kind of
that's
see,
your house.
Yeah.
yeah,
Steel
this is
is
what
the
you
barn.
see most of.
Yeah.
Looks like, what's that, a stream?
So right now, so just the procedure of it, so it's a 61,
A.
A,
So it's
which is,
agricultural use.
so that they have like tax exemptions or whatever.
Mhm.
So they want to remove the tax exemption so they could potentially break it up into lots and.
Well, it
houses.
would just, it would no longer be in that program, it would be
They're-
regularly taxed.
Why would they do this unless they're planning on doing something?
Well, they're, I think, I don't, from what I.
You can ask them.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, it's yours.
It's ours, yeah.
Okay, so would you like to just tell us about that? Or is it
Okay,
too
I can tell
personal?
you the history. Peter Ross from 123 Norris Road. My wife Rachel, we've lived in our house on Norris Road, which is opposite the property, since 1976, so that's coming up 36 years.
this is the one up the hill a
The
little
one
bit?
up the hill.
Ah, okay, all right.
We bought the property under discussion right now in 1984. Bought it as 2 building lots.
Mhm.
But we used it as for agricultural or recreational use. We cleared the land, we built the barn, and we're famous in town for having kept Highland cattle there for quite a number of years, probably 20 plus years, until they built houses next door to us, and we figured that the too much liability in keeping big cows. We didn't want to get divots in neighbours' lawns and things, so we started to keep sheep for a while, until we had problems with neighbours' dogs in front of the selectmen and everything else with that problem. And then, in the meantime, the bylaws changed, and they allowed backland lots, so we could reconfigure those 2 building lots that we originally bought into 3. And our attorney suggested we did that. We came before the planning board at that time and got planning permission through a special public meeting and special permit to create the backland block, which is the, I think that's the 110 one.
Yeah.
That's 4.5 acres,
Yep.
and then there's an 80,000 square foot lot in front of that.
The middle
which is
one.
112, one,
Yep.
middle one, and the remaining 4-something acres, or a little bit under 4 acres, is the one with the barn on.
Could you get another backland lot in there?
No,
No.
no, there's wetlands at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
They're delineated. The GIS map, if you were to look at that, shows them pretty well in line with the amount of land that we cleared. There is a seasonal stream at the back. In the springtime, it'll be quite wet back there, but that's not the cleared area. So we did consider selling them in the middle of the 2000s, around 2008, but then the market disappeared on us totally. About the same time, we met somebody who wanted to rent some land to raise cattle on, and that we did, and he's still there. That he owns the 6 cows that are there. He's very, very good with them. And through having generated some revenue now, as opposed to having kept cattle as pets, so to speak, then the opportunity was there to defer the taxes, and 61A allows you to defer the taxes. And if you sell it, then you have to pay the back taxes for the last 5 years. Well, it's been less than 5 years. But at that point in about 2008, which when we started the process, the taxes on that field were $12,000 a year. That's a lot of money. It's $250 a week it costs us to keep the field. So there was a motivation to try and mitigate some of those taxes at that time, and then we had a tenant farmer. The value's gone down significantly now, and so the taxes have reduced to about $10,000 per year, or if we weren't using the agricultural exemption. And we've got some of our own finances in better shape now, so we figured that we'd rather pay the taxes when they were due rather than defer them. We don't at this point in time have any plans to sell it or change the use. If you're not totally familiar with the 61A chapter, when it's in that tax deferral mode, the town has a lien on the land because there's still some taxes due, and they also have days after we decide to change its classification to purchase the property at a fair market value. So we're in that 120 days now, and that's why you're being asked for an opinion, because it's the selectmen who make the decision whether to purchase the property or not. But we haven't got it on the market at the moment.
What's your wish? What's your desire? That the town buys it, or that?
If we met with the Conservation Commission the other day, which was very interesting, because they've been asked for the same opinion. It would be great if it was the town would buy it and it was maintained in a conservation easement forever.
So your intent isn't to build houses on it, or?
If somebody came and wanted to buy a lot, then yes, part of our downsizing plan would be to sell a building lot, probably one at a time. Would make more sense from a capital gains point of view, rather than sell it all at once.
I guess financially, really, to you, it doesn't make a difference, right? I mean, whether somebody buys it for residential or the town buys it to keep it at fair market.
You're here in
exactly.
Well, they would
C4.
prefer.
Sorry?
Are you here in C4? Is that your lot with the other red roof?
I'm just saying,
Yes, we've got-
fiscally to them, they don't carry the weight because they get about the same amount of money.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I think in terms of like, if someone were to buy it, I think ultimately they
I'm sure, if they could get the same amount of money for somebody whatever happens if a town bought it.
Right.
Because somebody else isn't gonna buy it
Yes.
just to sit
So
there.
that's where we live.
Right.
Yeah,
So I guess
that's
because
our
we're in
shed.
that period,
That's the barn
that's
for the
really the only
orchard, yeah, the orchard there, so we keep our
opportunity for it to have that happen, which would be awesome.
houses.
They're houses that are accessed
Yeah,
from Green
I-
Road.
It's gonna have a
You can
time-
see there's some
hard time
gerrymandering
passing.
being done here
You
to
see
get a
those-
frontage on
Yeah.
North Road,
Okay.
but the access is
We
off Green Road.
we can just see lights, it's the
Mm.
one, the Olsons, who was it?
the Olsons, the Websters,
Yeah.
and
On what road?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Green.
Green Road.
Oh, Green.
Okay.
And they all come off of Green Road.
yeah,
So you live, which house? I mean,
this one.
Right here.
must be an awesome
It
view.
is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're looking over what aquatic.
yeah. But it's going, it's gone since we've been there.
Yeah, there's pine trees along the ridge here.
Sure.
That's in there, but we've generally cleared this. This was scrubland, basically, when we
Yeah.
bought it.
I was born and raised right about here,
On Harvard
and these
Road.
were all on Harvard Road. These
Yes.
are my old little hiking
Oh, yes.
trails.
Yes, there's a fantastic ravine along
Yeah,
there.
yep.
Yes,
Hmm.
this is very nice. So we've got 8 acres this side and 10
It's a,
this
it's a cool
side.
spot.
Where is Sunset Ridge in comparison
No, this is on the.
Other side of 117.
Yeah,
to? Okay.
this is the north side of 117.
You head past Wilder, no, right across Wilder Road, it's
Yes.
right over there.
Right.
Over the road.
Okay.
Yes.
117,
Got
you
it.
take a right. No.
Okay. Actually, it's the right, it's the right
So it's
after
Green
Harvard.
Road up here.
Okay, yeah, because I.
If you're going west, it's the right after Harvard.
Yes, it's
And
not
then
a
it
through
connects to
road
Green.
for commuters and people like that. So unless you're going to somebody on North Road.
Very
like speed
dangerous turning.
limit. Absolutely.
I come from Van Hill Road, so I cut down North Road to go to Wilder Road
Yes,
when I'm going down that way.
and it's a difficult intersection to get out
Yeah.
of.
So that is a difficult intersection.
Yes, I can be late for a meeting down here.
Does anybody know about 61A? If the town buys the land, is it zoned agricultural, or could it be used by the town, for
Think-
example, for housing? I mean, the question is, should the town buy the land, right? And I think in order to figure that out, we
What are
have
the
to know
uses?
what the town could use it
I
for.
think
How flat is that? Would that be
It's
something
slopes.
suitable for a ball field, or not so much?
It hasn't got a level piece on it, it's all
Okay.
downhill.
That's the only thing I could think of that the town would be really interested in,
I mean,
aside
so,
from just letting it sit.
right, I mean, it would probably get bought as conservation land, I would assume. But,
But does the town have, town does not have conservation land. Bolton Conservation Trust has
It would be the
conservation land,
conservation.
right?
yeah, you get it and then they transfer. But, so it's 10 acres. What is the market value of an acre? You know,
Well, it's more
it's
what is
three
a
building
lot.
lots,
It's-
yeah.
It's really the lot.
It's
What's a
3
lot
building
worth?
lots or
It's
2?
3 building
Three.
lots, yes, whatever the, and
5 a lot, probably, there.
So it would cost under $1 million for the town?
no,
Huh?
cost 3/4 perhaps.
750,000? I
If they were buying it
It
as
could be like
residential zone.
somewhere between 5 and.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not to do, no, I'm just like,
just thinking, recent town meetings, this would have to go to town meeting, and
Yes.
I can't,
well, we're just doing a recommendation, we're not gonna make the
I would go
final.
against
Yeah,
the
yeah.
town meeting, because I'm sure it's a nice piece of land, but it doesn't abut anything.
yeah.
It wouldn't be suitable for a ball field, there's no real special significance to it, other than it's a nice piece of land in Bolton. So
Yeah.
I would not recommend that the town buy it.
I mean,
That's why I asked what was behind it. Is it
Yeah.
money conservation land? Does it kind of open up a bigger piece of conservation?
I mean, I personally would recommend they don't buy it also. But I'm not sure, even if we did, I don't think it would pass town meeting anyway, based on the general field town meeting, but.
Now, the only similar case was the piece of land that Paul Weatherby had.
Yep,
And that was next to Bow Springs.
Yep.
It was a huge.
Exactly.
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 It was adjacent to it.
Yes. This doesn't have any sort of other connected piece of property.
I mean, North Road.
These are house lots. These are
Yeah.
great house lots with good
North,
view on
yeah,
house.
that's what I was gonna say, North Road is a really nice residential
They're
road.
cleared, it's a bit of a
Yeah.
view.
Yeah.
So are we just being asked whether or not we should?
Recommend to the selectmen whether the town buys at market value.
Okay.
I would say, I mean, I don't vote on that, I mean, I would say no. I don't know.
So there is no abiding conservation land, do we know that?
Correct, we do know that.
Yeah, it's all
It
residential.
has the, what did the Conservation Commission say?
Well, they were going to go up and look and see whether there was any grant money available to buy open land, because they knew the land quite well. Amy Wilson is one of our neighbours. For example, she was chair of the Conservation Commission at one time, so most of the Conservation Commission sort of saw this as a local amenity, whereby if it was maintained as a nice-looking meadow, then that would make the local residents most happy to see no change in its current use, because it's a very sort of good amenity value. We get a lot of walkers by, a lot of people meet and talk outside it and things like that. So it's a sort of landmark on the street.
But the trouble is that if it's not maintained, it soon becomes wilderness.
It has to be maintained. It isn't a piece of land, as Rachel says, that you can purchase and do nothing with, because it immediately returns to.
Yeah, I mean, because when I drive by it, I mean, it is definitely very beautiful, like looking over it, and I guess it is sort of comparable when you, the crossroads of Wattaquadock and Old Bay, I mean.
Wheeler's property.
Yeah, but it is kind of different land, like you said. And it's not really been like, whatever they say, the pristine farmland. It was reclaimed from woods, right?
It was an orchard once upon a time. It was part of,
Okay,
I can't remember the name off the top of my head, DeCosta's orchard.
okay.
And in fact, Mr. Phillips along here? No?
Oh, yeah, Powell,
Was it Powell?
I think so, yeah.
One of the old gentlemen that used to live in one of these two little cottages here.
Powers.
He used to work in that orchard at one time in about the 1920s. Had an interesting conversation with him at the Historical Society about it once. But Highland cattle took a liking to apple tree bark, and stripped all the bark off and the trees died, unfortunately. There's some down in the wetlands still, some of the original orchard trees. And the previous owner of our house used to maintain the orchard for a while.
Do you know roughly where the houses would go on this one, or
Yes.
could you point to them? Oh,
Did you ever see that?
Well, it's pretty obvious.
yeah, no, the front ones are obvious.
Yes, this one's about here,
Yeah.
and then the other one is here.
This is the stream?
This is, this is as good a map as we can get. Yeah, this is the stream, and this is where
100 feet.
this is the fence here.
Yeah,
That's the fence in the land. These are pine trees. The other house would be about here. And there's a steep drop-off, or fairly steep drop-off, which makes it a very attractive building lot. And this house also takes advantage of its slope.
Oh, because you get a good view out your back, you're saying?
You can get an exit or egress out of the basement.
Oh, okay,
Also,
I gotcha. Yeah,
Yes. Whereas from the front of the house, it's uphill.
yeah, I gotcha.
On this one's, and we had septic designs and everything done for them as well, and there are two wells in, and there's a well in here, and there's a well in, you can just about see it there.
Is that barn historic, or is that,
No,
that's
you built
newer?
it.
I
built that,
built
right?
the barn,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we built the barn.
So there wouldn't be any concerns about that?
No.
And that's probably roughly where that house would go? Or would it be
Yeah,
further down?
we didn't engineer this one. The reason being is that there's a well down here.
Okay.
We didn't want to fill that well because it's a beautiful stone-lined
Oh.
well that used to be the well for this house.
Hmm.
So there's a line that runs from
Oh,
here
wow. Cool.
down to a pump house and then into the well.
Hmm.
And that's why we sited the barn there, so we interrupted the electric service going down there and the water service.
Oh.
So that's how we get water and electric to the barn. So it's been very much a part of our property for the last 30 years. So, yeah, it's destined as building lots, really. But
I agree.
we got to go through this process.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's perfect for building, because it's not abutting conservation land, and North Road is a really nice, I think, neighborhood road, like you say, people walk up and down it, and
Yeah, we've met everybody on the street, you know, they all.
I looked at, I think 144 North Road, up a little bit further, they have a pool in the back.
Jeffy, that was Jeffy's house,
Yeah.
yeah.
We looked at that when we were gonna buy,
Oh, yes.
like 5 years ago.
It's an old, is it a salt box?
Well, that was built just before we moved here. That was
Yeah.
It was built by Peter Hayes, who used to
Okay,
live
okay.
here.
So,
It was a
yeah,
builder in town. That was built in about 72.
Well, I'll miss the fields and the cows. It was pretty charming.
Well, we're not about to turn it over to a builder right away. We're
The
just,
red roofs, I'll miss that, but
yeah.
Where did the Highland Coos go?
progress.
Some of them, one of them went to Davis Farm.
Okay.
Yeah, one of them went to Davis is when they started up their
oh, Davis Farmer?
Davis
Oh,
Farm.
that's cool.
And the others went up to Dunstable.
So those were a rare breed then?
There's some on the corner of, is it Forbush Mill and?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the stock
Oh, they're
fields.
Galloways.
Oh,
Belted
okay,
Galloways.
okay, all right.
Yes.
Right.
They were, now they're horses.
Cool animals.
Are they tasty?
Yes.
All right.
Highland cattle are because they're not fast growing. They like scrub, so
Yeah.
that's why they were particularly suitable for clearing the land.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the grass just came back.
So they're cow-shaped goats.
Yes. Yeah, and they stay warm. They didn't need a barn.
That's right.
Yes. So they've been fun.
Thank you. So I guess we'll vote.
Make a motion of not interested.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sounds cool.
Huh?
Sounded so cold.
I know, that really did sound cool. I apologize.
I'm very interested,
Beautiful.
but
I mean, I do love driving by it. I like it,
It's
but
the
it,
term.
every road
lay it down.
should have like a meadow like that on it.
It's been great
But
fun.
I always vote against the town spending money on anything.
Yeah. Well, if you could come down in your price, that would be great. Enticing.
a $750,000 meadow.
Doesn't matter.
So I'm a huge proponent.
No.
If it was a budding conservation land,
If they got a grant for agricultural use, if they could get a grant
If
for
they could, yes.
agriculture, yeah.
Yeah, that might be a community project.
Well, somebody's gotta grow our beef.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm here to the end.
Let's go over our report. So some people's terms are coming up. And some people,
I really thought mine was. Another year.
yeah, that's great. So, just for the new people,
But not anymore.
Mr. Ricci is going to have to run for his spot now.
last time.
Get the signs on the yards.
He just went for the 1 year though. I went for the 5 year.
You did run for that?
Yeah, yeah.
I was so close.
He's just appointed.
No, he ran for the, for Dave, Doug's spot, I think. Whatever, there was a 1 year and a 5 year.
You were key.
I don't think there was anyone challenging me though. Is interest percolating? Is there going to be a campaign?
I noticed that you got one more vote than I did though, even though we were both unopposed. I was wondering what that was about.
I went in and
vote for yourself?
I don't know what
I
happened.
rigged it all, man. I just wanted to come out on top.
I don't know what happened.
All right.
I'm sure
He
this-
owns a share of Halliburton.
No, like
Voting machines are in my pocket.
Yeah, he got one more vote. I assume we have some enemy out there.
So,
That's terrible.
So-
I don't think so.
James, are you coming back?
If you can find someone else, I know I say this every time, but I think if you can find someone else, I would rather bow out. So I don't know if we can advertise or put the word around. I'll do it if you absolutely can't find
I think
anyone.
there was some, there was
I know, I keep saying it, no one takes it
No,
seriously.
no, we don't, we're happy to have
As
you
long as I have.
stay. I think there was a woman who said something years ago.
It's been over 10 years,
At the
right?
time, she,
I don't know,
think she
maybe.
wanted it
It's
anymore,
been- that
but
seems like
Over
over
10 years.
To get,
But if you wanna
I was an
contact
associate
her,
member before him.
I'll reach out and see if I can.
I started as
Yeah.
an associate,
So
and then
reach out to her and
less
put in
than a year, I
ad.
got voted in as
But
a
otherwise,
member, and
you're-
then things come
I'll
up.
do it if you absolutely can't find, but I think we should make an effort to find someone.
Okay.
If nothing else, because it's a good stepping stone for somebody who wants to, you know, because I can't, because I'm not
by
US.
the way, I drive by your house all
Somebody
all the time.
can step into
When are you gonna become a citizen?
I love your house.
That's anyway. See, if I do
What,
that, will I
announce the
lose
queen?
my
Looks awesome.
I could lose my Medicare eligibility to
So what's
Canada.
up?
There's complications.
Yeah.
Very fun. It's very Asian.
You have to think ahead.
Neighbors.
Yeah, it's very
If
practical.
you're anxious to be swept off into the sunset, I mean, we could actively help, but if you're trying to,
Yeah, let's
Sounds-
make an effort to find someone, and if you can't, you
Wait for the
know.
snow.
I have a neighbor that may be helpful
Yeah.
to your cause,
Sure.
but that'd be sad.
I think,
I've done it a long time. It's good to have some.
I think that
Serve your
Jen,
sentence, so that's
people don't
it.
want to be an associate, but unless there's, I mean, if 5 people, I mean, unless, you know, you can vote with less than 5 people here, you know, officially, so you can make it attractive that way, I guess.
Yep.
So, did anyone wanna touch on any of the points?
I only have one, and it's just a grammar issue. The fifth point from the end.
Fifth from the end.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The planning department continued to strive to be more efficient and dependent on the permit tracking software. It just sounds weird to my ear that you're trying to be more dependent.
Right.
I'm thinking that you maybe strive to be more efficient by utilizing the permit tracking software.
Sure.
I don't know, that's not
He does this to everybody,
Yeah.
Erica, so
Yeah.
it's just,
No.
it's an honor to have him
Jay
read your writing so
would be amazed.
carefully.
No, feel
Well,
free
actually, I
to.
think that's the first thing I've corrected her for.
It's time, you have kids.
Oh, no, it's just-
Because he takes online courses for no reason.
Well, I haven't done that for a while, but I should.
Unlike Russian.
I think
art
that's
history.
cool.
He's got a sharp, he's got a
It's
sharp
not bad.
mind still, it's great.
John, I support you in your
Thank you. And my-
achievements and
My
online
grammar
academia.
police them.
Code Academy's waiting.
Somebody has to do that. So
Did I
that
miss
was,
anything?
that,
I tried not to, but you
no,
never
it
know.
looked good to me.
Okay.
Yep.
And John, you'll be running
We'll be running.
for a full term, great.
5 years.
How is it 5 years now?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
You can step down at
Full
any time.
sentence.
James, how long have you been on? How many terms is
It's
this?
been so long, I've actually forgotten.
Is it-
I-
it's- when did you
like,
start?
I think
It's
it's
back
9.
after Benderson first.
Well, if my second
But that's
5-year
going
term
back.
is up next year,
So this
and
is
he
the
took up associate after I became a full member, that puts him at 9 years right now.
That sounds.
You're losing all that Century Mill Estates
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, but we couldn't use it anyway.
oh, I know, excuse yourself.
Just in time, you know, we had you long enough. It's good. Definitely came in. It was a fun year to be like a first year guy, like some
There's a lot of
exciting stuff.
activity, yeah.
Yeah.
Got to know Andy.
That it? We got more.
That
Is
was,
there anything else?
Well,
One more thing.
you'd asked that I
Oh.
include the Mass DOT training.
Anybody want to talk about the estate takeover in 117? Or do you want to go to bed? Go home.
I find the prospect of change exciting.
He doesn't sleep anyhow.
Drive by the house, the lights are up.
He's an evil banker. They don't sleep.
Well, no, he's got a.
You count money?
They don't see either.
No.
He's like
I'm counting diapers these days.
I know.
Just roll the kid in a room
You
full
could
of
be
cats.
perfect. You were
My
perfect
audit doesn't
after
shape up, I'm
fees,
missing
eh?
2 diapers. Cool.
Dave had a baby, just for everybody at home.
Oh, Karen had a
Descendant,
baby.
yeah,
Dave
his
Walsh.
family. Yeah.
Karen told me on the operating table, I think we're done.
Oh,
I think we're done now.
3 and 2. 2's a good number.
You know, the average society has, each family has to have more than 2.1 kids, a society will eventually break down.
It's okay, society.
It's because of the folks that, for whatever reason, don't reproduce. All the parents, the 2 parents need 2.1.
Yeah, exactly.
Is Japan under 1? By now?
Well, society is a big Ponzi scheme, and once you break that down, it topples over eventually.
Well, on that note, make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
No, I thought it was a beautiful song.
What do you want to talk about?
I'm gonna try to do this that time, sorry.
Did she want to say something
Like
about?
miscellaneous updates, what did you have with that?
Just a couple of things.
Were you gonna talk about? No?
Mass DOT transfer?
No, I was here for the 117 discussion, that's not gonna happen?
Oh, no, it is, yep. Good, that's great to know. Do you want to start off?
Well, We met with Erica, Public Ways met with Erica at 7 tonight, because we were looking over your warrant articles for town meeting this year, and we were a little dismayed that we weren't seeing any of the recommendations that were made in the mobility report concerning changes to the subdivision rules and regs. And,
Those wouldn't go to town meeting.
well, yeah, not for this year. But
No,
I'm thinking in
Rules and
terms
regs
of
aren't
the
just a vote from us. Those would never.
That is on our agenda to work on the
Okay.
subdivision rules and regulations. We've been kicking it down the road.
So they wouldn't go to town meeting if you make
There are
changes?
rules and not
in terms-
bylaws.
Oh, okay. There was one, though, there was a Public Ways Access, Sudbury called it a Public Ways Access, which asked for some sort of remediation if you could determine if the development, residential or commercial, had a significant impact on the byways around the development. And that'll take a while into looking at. But anyway, in regard to the transfer of ownership of 117, one of the arguments is that you will get your sidewalks. And so our petition in putting in an in lieu of clause in the subdivision rules and regs, and also in requiring frontage, you could eventually build up a fund like Stowe did, and in 10 years they were able to do that extension of 117, just using these funds that accrued over 10 years.
So what were you saying about sidewalks? That if we transfers to the state, then they would pay for sidewalks?
Well, the state, one of the things we're being offered is, as part of their Green Dot directive, when the state does
When they
a major roadway, you experience, if you noticed in Hudson on 62, where they did the roundabout and the sidewalks, that part of their Green Dot directive is that when they do major work to a roadway, they will also include wider shoulders for bicyclists and also sidewalks for the pedestrians. And that would be part of their long-term plan, not their short-term plan, if they were to take over 117. So you would be talking at least 5, 10, 15 years out before you would start to see any sidewalks. Also, when the Mass DOT rep met with the town last week, he said in more cases than not, that usually there are environmental issues that come up that prevent them from putting in sidewalks. And, I don't know, but I see a lot of issues along 117 west of the town center in terms of significant drop-offs and wetlands, that we may not get a continuous stretch of sidewalk. However, the town, if we all sort of work together, can put in sidewalks anytime we want. We just have to come up with the money. And so one of the ways that you can come about that is to, create this in lieu.
Sure.
And also by stretching the limits of where you want sidewalks, that then it gives you a little bit more leverage on being able to determine whether or not, if it makes sense to put in a sidewalk at that point or not, and if it doesn't, then you start creating this fund. So today we already have $9,000, which is not bad.
So where does that come from?
Developers kick it in instead of having to put the sidewalks in. I believe Northwoods did that.
Yep,
Northwoods
4,000 for Northwoods.
So instead of getting Northwoods,
Bond,
no,
whatever it
give
is.
me the money and I'll put it on.
But right now, you have to negotiate for it, and it's, it's up to the developer, the goodwill of the developer, if they want to do this. Also, it's how much do you charge them? With an in lieu of clause, the towns that have it, they have a dollar figure that they can then,
It's based on
request.
frontage.
And they have difference for frontage sidewalks versus internal sidewalks, a
Okay.
different dollar amount. So just a thought, moving forward is that this is a way that we can, because money is a big issue in this town, and spending money, that if we want to extend our sidewalk network, that we can do it without having to charge the taxpayer.
So it's like we've been doing with Park and the Clinton Savings Bank, saying we want you to build a sidewalk along the street, but if it's mutually agreeable, they can give us money instead of building it. If there's, some reason we don't want it there. But that's for residential and commercial?
Yeah, yes, subdivision would be just residential, right?
Yep.
And, but commercial, yeah, that should be part of the requirements of any commercial property.
And then what were you talking about affecting the roads in the neighborhood? And before, it kind of gets back to Century Mill and like how badly the roads have been treated by the construction vehicles. Was it something related to that?
This is different.
Okay.
This is, and it could be a general bylaw, or it could be a bylaw that is in subdivision rules and regs. It can go either way. I mean, there are people who argue that planning has too much control and they would like to see less control, so then you can make it a general bylaw. Or if you want to keep it within your subdivision rules and regs. But Century Mill is a good example of the improvements that could be made to the roadways, plus the damage that they are doing to the roadways that is not going to be paid for by them. If you had language that required, that the town could require them to fix or to enhance the public roadways, then it's just something more that the town gets as a result of the development.
So instead of relying on the traffic study, which, was awful for Century Mill, just said everything's fine. It's just saying there's some impact, and so I guess it'd be good to look at that. There's definitely been an impact, at Century Mill, like on the road, and it's gonna be an ongoing kind of issue. That road is really narrow. I don't know if people want their roads widened. I don't know how the neighborhood feels about that.
No, but you could have taken that,
Take some bumps out.
well, and the wide mouth intersection at South Bolton and Century Mill, I mean, that could have been cleaned up to a nice T intersection, and that's something they could have paid for.
And your point is, it can be done ad hoc, proposal by proposal on a negotiation basis, or it can be worked
Make
to
them do
be
it.
incorporated into the rules and regs, and then it's a simpler negotiation. It's black and white, it's there, for the developer to read, for the town to read, et cetera. Yeah.
When do we plan on working on the rules and regs? It keeps on getting pushed, I know.
Yeah. We should get
We're not
working
on
on
any
it.
strict timetable.
Yeah.
All we need to
Still
do
lead
is,
on it.
we have to have a hearing to discuss any changes, but,
Okay.
it's just ultimately up to
Yeah.
folks on the board
Yeah.
to vote for it.
You probably sent it to us before,
Yeah.
the pack.
We've reviewed the list of changes that,
Yeah, okay, so we should stay focused.
Okay.
but we actually need to implement the changes and come up with any other.
Yeah, it was a pretty big list, but then we got tied down with Clinton Savings Bank and Prime
Yeah,
Dine.
it's-
So do we have time at the next meeting to go over that again?
The next meeting could be rather busy. Well, no, that's end of January. No, we could do it at the next meeting, end of January.
So you're saying the February 11th meeting will be busy?
That's the meeting I was thinking of, because we're gonna have the hearing for the warrant articles and then a hearing for a common driveway up along Hill Road that was submitted last week by Sherman Dillis. So that'll be a busy meeting. And they also have a hearing, a submission for Backlund Lot, so.
And now, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Are there any further updates? before we do?
Just recently, I think it was yesterday, I got,
Keep trying.
I apologize. I got hearing notices from Board of Selectmen in the planning board mailbox for some utility poles on Aquatic Hill Road, and I can't remember the other one, I gotta pull it.
And we haven't reviewed our meeting notes in a while.
I know, that's because I'm behind on meeting notes, which I have to work on.
Technical difficulties, your computer crashing, yeah?
No, it's not a complaint. It's just a reminder. It was, we used to like do 5 or 6 at a time in the past.
Well, maybe you could, email us one per week, and then however many you've emailed us in the intervals between meetings, we can go, yep, that's good. These
Yeah.
2, these 3, whatever.
Unfortunately, I'm about 6 months behind on meeting notes. I mean, I have my notes that I take during the meeting, but I haven't actually made them into the meeting notes yet. Okay, here they are. So, Old Bay Road and Aquatic Hill Road. So, if you want to take a look at them, I'm in here.
So these are new added poles? Some of that they could change the color.
This is the sort of stuff this Board of Selectmen have to deal with.
Anything else, Mary?
I'm not on to
No, I wanted, if anything was gonna be discussed about 117, I just
Yeah, no, I
wanted to
put
hear
it
what
on,
was gonna
but
be.
Well, I mean, what's the planning board's role? Do we have a role?
For me,
Besides giving a recommendation?
when, in Lancaster, the town planner was involved with Mass DOT and their engineer in the process, but, for some reason that didn't happen in Bolton, so, I think, not that the planning board has to get involved in everything, but I just think that, they've been working on it for a year and a half, and, it seems like, they could have opened it up a lot sooner, I think, to other kind of
What's the,
committees and groups in town.
I know that you want to get out of here, but what's the general consensus in town is they want it or they don't want it? They want the transfer or don't want it? What's the general consensus?
I don't know what the general consensus
Well,
is.
yeah.
There's what people
Well,
like me.
you should watch, there
Or
was a
when
big
you-
meeting last week.
Yeah,
So if you live, if your house is abuts Main Street,
Yeah.
either your backyard
You
or your
don't want
front
it.
yard, no, I mean, because you just, it opens up the possibility that,
It gets widened.
The
It
state
could be
front
widened.
yard.
yeah, cars could go faster, not because, they're saying speed limits won't change, but if you widen a road and clear out the vegetation, then
Speed
people
controls, yeah.
will drive faster. I mean, what disappointed me about the proposal is that, their thing is they're gonna put nice shiny lines on a road, which would be great, but they're not, they talked about the high school, like, okay, we're gonna reduce the speed limit there to 40. He talked about that. That speed limit needs to come down to 30, like Main Street, or to 20, like other schools with flashing lights.
What is the speed limit there is?
It's 45. It's,
Well, by the time kids get to high school, they should be smart enough to go both ways, right?
Yeah.
I hope
I
my
love you
kids are.
Darwinian.
it's very Darwinian there.
We did out a little bit.
So, and, so that's a dangerous intersection that they didn't seem to really have any great. They said it's more dangerous if you lower the speed limit there, because then you get people rear-ending each other. So whenever,
Wow, that's interesting.
to me, when I listened to the guy,
Usually, that's good.
whenever like local safety came in conflict with them, like moving traffic quickly, they just said, no, we can't do that.
Are you for or against a left-hand turning lane onto Aquatic?
I mean, if we need a light there for
I
like,
think you're published on this topic.
on that one?
I thought you were.
No.
Yeah, no, I did.
You
That
published
was
on
related to
715.
715, definitely. I mean, that was
I mean, that would
destroyed,
help
so-
out with traffic a lot, I would think.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The Mass DOT rep said that a turning lane, asked how long it would be 700 feet. And,
Does that take in a mechanic?
So,
yes, it would probably go from Wattaquatic close to the Houghton building. So
Yeah.
you're talking about an extra 11-foot lane
Is it
with a
600
turning
feet?
lane, then a 4-foot shoulder, and then a sidewalk that's ADA compliant, and you figure out what the 3 houses, the Drewitzes and the
Right.
2 houses, where they're going.
so that's
They
what
wouldn't- they
start
wouldn't-
right at.
They wouldn't have that peace sign anymore.
Well, I don't think they have front
No,
doors.
it's not that side,
Yeah.
it's this side. It's
Oh.
the north side of the
Oh.
street. So from the Houghton building
Oh, yeah,
up to the
Yeah.
new town
I
common.
gotcha.
100 feet long.
It wouldn't just be like
700
right
feet.
there,
I don't
the
think
way
the
it is
piece
now.
of the 2 lanes down by the bank is that long.
I just recommend that don't take things at face value,
Yeah, sure.
ask questions, and please attend the meetings. Because if you just take what they're saying as fact, I think that you're gonna be in for a big surprise.
So you would widen it on both sides though, right?
You can't-
Supposedly, if you do a turning lane on one side, you have to do it on the other. I don't know what
There's no
the
room on the Cracker
guide
Barrel
rules
or that
around
little
that.
red house. There's
Right,
no-
nothing.
there's
Well,
no-
Nothing.
Yeah, because the Cracker Barrel's right on the corner.
Yeah.
But 715's gone now, so you could push the road that way.
I know, but then that's what they're saying. They'd start 600 feet on this side back to Houghton to widen.
Yeah. So,
There's nothing.
so you have
left
you have the
on
lamp store? What's
The
up with
store
that,
house.
the antique
The
store?
lamp store,
The old
yeah.
antique store.
Yep, that, and then there's that gray house,
Yeah.
there's like a federal house, and then there's
Yeah.
that blue bungalow.
Yeah.
So those 3 houses would have the road like up to their, you know, between their front porches and the sidewalk now, they probably lose half of that. That's where the right of way is.
Yeah, that would
So,
stink for them.
it's, you know, it seems, I mean, the really interesting thing is the trend is that Mass DOT is giving roads back to municipalities, and their budgets for maintenance are getting cut. So, for some reason, they're interested in our road, but, you know, they're not
Because they
willing
wanna
to
add-
say, yeah.
95 to 190.
I mean, it really does,
Yeah.
it needs a left-hand turning lane, it does. I mean,
But what if they put in like a turning lane all the way from 495 to, you know, to Harvard Road? So you have
Basically,
3
Hudson did
lanes.
it.
what do you mean, a turning lane? All of
You'd have a middle lane in the middle for turning into the library, turning into Murphy, either direction would be like that. So, you know,
I mean, it needs something,
Well,
clearly.
you can put in a turning lane,
Yeah.
but if you're the state in the turning lane,
You
you
have to
put
go
it
to
according to
federal.
their guidelines.
federal guide.
I mean, there are many turning lanes that can
So-
accommodate 2 or 3 cars.
So if we don't turn it over and we want to put in a left-hand
We
turning
can
lane,
put a turning
We
lane
can
in.
we could do like a 100-foot turning lane?
Somebody just has to lead on it,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
So then, you know, in that case, you would say you're against the transfer. So you could,
Oh, yeah.
you could dictate that turning lane better. Because clearly, if you could have a few cars off to the side, that would really help out. It only takes one person to bring 117 to a standstill.
Frankly,
that
what you need
is-
is everyone to be paying attention. If you're making a left, get on the left-hand side of the road. And there is ample room to get around on the right. I know I'm an optimist, but
see, that.
that's all you really need.
To me, the dangerous thing is coming down Wattaquatic or Manor and wanting to take a left or crossing over to Harvard Road. That's
Crossing
dangerous.
over to Harvard
Like,
Road.
they
That
need
becomes
to
tough.
light
Sure,
more
it
at
is.
Harvard Road.
Well, I was gonna say,
That's more dangerous for people to turn left or cross
yeah,
over.
I've definitely almost died at least a few times trying to turn left from Harvard. on
There was a
117.
terrible accident before Thanksgiving
Yeah.
and a
There always
woman went
is.
through the wall, our wall.
Your stone wall has had more accidents before.
Well,
you
this
were
time the
So
car
wait-
went through it, there's
So-
like a gap.
So
if you
the
look.
car turning left gets T-boned and it gets sent into,
I don't know what happened,
Yeah.
but really
I've seen
scary
more of them.
accidents
That-
happen at that.
that is, at nighttime, I don't even try it anymore. If I'm going that way, I just go to
So
Golden Run.
they
Speed
didn't-
by you.
Speed.
Mass DOT doesn't wanna put a light in there.
why.
That's, you know, to me, you know, they're fender benders, and then there's like, they're places
That's
where
like
people
death
go to the
trap.
hospital,
That's a
and
death
that's
trap.
one of them. And they had no proposal
And
for
then
that.
you're always playing chicken with a person from,
They're just
I
gonna
think
put
Golden Run
nice
is a death trap
lines
in
on
winter
the
time.
road.
The whole road.
no, but yeah,
That's
Golden
before
Run,
that parking.
Golden Run is just you versus trees. I mean,
Yeah.
Harvard
And when
Road.
someone comes and isn't scrupulous about driving in the gutter.
But it's just like, the big picture for me is like every neighborhood in Bolton needs to be like the nicest it can be for the whole town to have, you know, the best quality of life and to sustain like our property values. If you like say goodbye to one part of the town, you know, within 20 years, everything else would kind of follow. Every neighborhood has to be strong, and that's a big piece to give away all the way.
I mean,
don't know.
like you said, there is room there to really squeeze, you know, a left-hand turning lane if, you know, maybe the transfer.
If they were willing to do a plan like our developers do and like present it to the town, like this is what we're gonna do over the next 30 years, that would be different, but they're not gonna commit to anything.
Well, I read the report, it's just they have the 5-year and 10-year plan or whatever.
And they can't be held to any of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Mary.
Good night.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Go ahead and do that.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
At this point,